Hello and welcome to today's episode. We will be talking about the year 2015 and what that brought to video games. Before we do that, though, we'll go over my Roulette of Gaming segment where I have 7 games picked out that I'll be posting up YouTube short videos all throughout next week. And then after that, we're going to touch base on some modern gaming stuff, as there was actually quite a bit that happened. And I was actually trying to keep up with it as much as I can. I just mainly have like headlines that I looked at, so I'll try to go or provide as much information as I can on that. It was a little bit too much to keep up with it all, but hopefully this will at least provide you some insight on everything that happened in this past week for gaming. And then after that is what we'll get into the main meat of the episode with 2015. A lot of great stuff happened this year, as this is, I feel, when the eighth generation really got going. And there was a lot of great games. It also started showing that, for me personally, one of the things that stood out about this generation was just how many. I mean, I know these games can be a little much at times, and they've been criticized for, basically that there's just too much to do sometimes. But open world gaming really started taking off here, and so we have some examples of what made some of these games so great on this generation. But let's get though into the games that I have picked out here from Roulette of Gaming, and so we have quite the mix here, and actually some pretty big games too. Also, at least a few of them are that are pretty well-known games, and some others that are a little bit more obscure. But hopefully, at least they'll still either provide you some information on this. So again, if you're new here, what I do is I pick 7 games. I used to do this a little bit differently. I've been changing things up as the episodes have gone on. But right now, what I'm doing is prior to me recording this, I've picked 7 games. And what I do is I have an Excel sheet that I have just tons of games listed on there. I think I'm over like I think I'm close to like 1,750 now, and I'll just use random number generator, and then whatever number it picks, I'll select that game from the list, and then just talk about it for the week, and then I'll record some gameplay segments of these games here and post it up on YouTube. I get my YouTube shorts on YouTube channel Arcade Amigo, also on TikTok as well too. Same Arcade Amigo there. Let's get into these games here, and starting off with kind of a big one, and by that I mean it was pretty popular but very controversial game. Probably the most controversial game that I've ever seen and heard about, right? As far as when it was coming out, before it came out, when it came out, after it came out, it was just, this game has just been surrounded by controversy, and that is The Last of Us Part 2. So this game, oh man, The Last of Us, the first one, is my second favorite game of all time. So I have a lot of fondness for that game. And how that game ends and all, I would have been happy if they would have just left it at that. I feel that certain stories or games or movies or what have you, sometimes it just needs a one part, right? Or maybe like if it's a trilogy, for example, and then after that, just call it good. Just let a good thing, die in honor, basically. And so when they announced that part 2 was coming out, I wasn't 100% sold on it. As like I said, I feel that the first one ended in a way where it was its own sort of self-contained story. But here we are, right? It's the original creators doing it, and so I was like, all right, well, let's give it a shot. Well, prior to the game coming out, there was a lot of controversy with it, mainly due to the leaks that were coming out beforehand. And I'm not going to get too much into that here in this little segment here, as I'll touch more on that when the game actually released, which was in 2020. But suffice to say, though, that ultimately I do like the game. I was very immersed with this game when it first came out. And if we're talking about the gameplay, I mean, it definitely improved on the first part, where you have more stealth mechanics, you have more attack options, and then also the expanded moveset really lends well to the more open-ended environment. And in some ways, not to this extent, but in some ways, it kind of made it feel a little bit like the Phantom Pain, where you have so much options right on how you can clear out an area. And so I definitely did appreciate that. The graphics are amazing on it. I mean, if we're talking about like games that are trying to push for like a more realistic look, I mean, this is probably the best one of the best looking games out there. I mean, between this and Red Dead Redemption 2, it's like we pretty much peaked in graphics with these two games. You can increase the frame rates, you can increase the resolutions, absolutely, and they have, right? Well, at least with this one, with the remastered version. But as far as like the texture quality, the character models, and all, I mean, this is about as good as it gets. And so all of that is great. The music is great too, as well, and So, and then the crafting mechanics is good. What it comes down to, and unfortunately it's where it takes a bit of a hit, is because of the story. And I say that because it is a very story intensive game. So even if everything else is done really well, it's still going to take a bit of a hit in my opinion, because the story has some issues with it. Now there's a lot of different ways that people had issues with this game. For me, what it comes down to is just sort of the pacing of the game and some of the story choices that they made that feels a little uneven. And because of that, some of the, I mean, there's definitely gut-wrenching moments in this game for sure, but some of it though feels like it doesn't quite pay out as well though either, because of the structure of the story. That was one of my main complaints with this game. And so ultimately, because of that, while I feel it's still worthwhile to play this game, I'm still not 100% convinced that it should have been done. But it's still worthwhile playing, and it's still, given, outside of my issues with the story, it's still a pretty high quality, big budget, highly polished game that, even with all its faults, it's still a good product though. And so didn't quite like it as much as the first one, right, in many ways, but still, I would say, as hesitant as I was for a sequel to be made of the first one, for what we got, all right, I'll take it still. But it just kind of ends in a way now, though, where it's like we kind of need a part three to wrap it all up, though. But from my understanding, that was rumored for a while, but then that's been pretty much put on ice from last I heard, anyway, on it. But overall, not a bad game, but definitely just, if you've never played this game, and if you've heard about The Last of Us, whether you played it or you watched the TV show, I'll just say this: the first season of the TV show, which was based off of the first game, was for the most part pretty highly praised, right? I still prefer the game more, but for the most part it was pretty highly praised. The second season, which was based off of the, I mean, they're cutting it up some, right? But the second season, while not the full, doesn't cover the full extent of part two, it wasn't as well received. So as you can kind of see, right, the framework of the first game was much better than the framework of the second game, in my opinion, and from what it looks like, pretty much everyone else, right, given the popularity of the show as well, too, for like your casual fan as well. But yeah, The Last of Us Part Two, so much. We'll touch more about this game when I get to the year 2020 in my little retrospective that I've been doing on years of gaming. But my second game that I have here is for Xenogears. And Xenogears is, for me personally, a big heavy hitter as far as like a critically acclaimed game, and or as far as like just a really big fan favorite game. Now this game has a lot of issues as well too, mainly because the game came on 2 discs, and the second disc wasn't quite completed, so they just sort of rushed it in a way where, I mean, a lot of the disc 2 is just really just text. I mean, you still fight enemies and all, but the main story is just a lot of text crawling on the screen. But had this game realized its full potential, this game could have potentially been my favorite game of all time. I absolutely love the story to it for what it is there. The characters, the battle system is also really cool, which kind of combines like turn-based battle system with like a fighting game, and being able to ride into in mechs and all. It's really impressive. A very deep, thought-provoking story as well too, with so much going on, and yet somehow it does it in a way, outside of like the fumble of this too, that it's still pretty understandable, and just amazing music as well too from the same composer of Chrono Trigger. I mean, truly, this game is outstanding, and if any game deserves a remaster of some sort, is this one, just so that they can finalize their vision. As part of the reason why they had to do this to the way that they did it was because it was ultimately a bit rushed, and they were limited on budget. Probably also because this game was sandwiched in between like a lot of Final Fantasy games. But this game was originally was pitched as a Final Fantasy VII idea, but an incredible game, and for what it is still. And eventually, the creators went on to create the much beloved Xenosaga, and especially the really beloved Xenoblade Chronicles game. So, if you wanted to see kind of where, I mean, it's they're not. My understanding, I believe they have some references to each other. But if you wanted to see where this sort of storytelling and anime philosophy kind of style story came from, this would be one to get. This one you might have to resort to emulation though, because outside of like the PlayStation 3 store, which I don't even know if that's still, if you can purchase this game on there, there's really no other way to play this on modern consoles. But yeah, an amazing game. But next up, I got Yakuza Kiwami 2. And so the second game in the Yakuza series, but this is the remastered version that came out. And I'm not too familiar with this game. I played a little bit of the series. I played a bit of part one, but haven't gotten into the other games. So this will be interesting to capture some footage for this. Basically, my understanding is you control a character. I think his name is Ryu, and you go through areas in Tokyo, I believe, trying to take on the Yakuza gang, or you are a Yakuza member. And from my understanding, there's a lot of, there's story elements to it, which can be a bit serious, but the game can be a little silly also from all the mini games that it has. At least that's sort of from what I've heard about the series. And I've definitely been wanting to get into the series. It seems like something that would be right up my alley to play, but just haven't gotten around to playing it. So at the very least, it'll be fun to capture some footage for this game here. And next up is for Middle-earth, The Shadow of Mordor. And this game, I'd have to think about it, but I want to say I think it was my favorite game of 2014. And just an excellent open world game set in the universe of Lord of the Rings, which uses the incredible Nemesis system where it tracks some of your enemies, and as you kill them, it makes them more powerful, or if they kill you, it just makes, I think it makes them more powerful, but if you kill them back, it gives you some rewards, or something to that effect. I kind of forgot the details of all that, but I just remember it was a really addicting system and made it so much fun to hunt down a lot of these orcs who are part of this Nemesis system, and truly made it fun. Some pretty cool missions in it, and again, the whole Lord of the Rings backdrop is really cool. Where the story, though, takes place many years before the Lord of the Rings trilogy, from the books and the movies. And with you got Troy Baker playing the main character, and the combat system is pretty cool, which is sort of a combination of like from the Arkham series, where you can do some counters with just a quick button prompt, so it makes it a lot of fun. And also a bit of Assassin's Creed too, also with the way you can scale some of the walls and buildings and such. And so definitely a really fun, addicting open world game that if you've never played it before, highly recommend it. And after you play this game, it might make you a bit upset on that this Nemesis system was patented eventually by Warner Brothers. And so to my understanding, I could be wrong, but I don't think anybody else can use it for now, because it was just an incredible idea that we would wish to see further expanded more in all kinds of different games. But that's my understanding, though, that they patented it, and then they haven't really been doing anything with it. So that's been, a little frustrating there. But either way, this one, excellent game. And then after that, we go to a different genre of game, and that's for World of Goo. And so World of Goo, I originally played this on the Wii, and it was a game that was on the WiiWare, so sort of like their version of I guess back then, like a Xbox Live Arcade shop or PSN Network shop. And it's just a really fun puzzle game that, honestly, I have a hard time remembering a lot about it, but I just remember you control like these, it's going to sound wrong, but like these black gooey balls, and then they sort of stick together, and you form like structures with them to help you get across to an objective, right? So basically, from what I understand, you have like all these balls there that you're trying to get from point A to point B, and because they stick together, right, and all, almost think of them kind of like, I don't know, like the symbiote Venom, right, and all, where it's like kind of gooey and all. I don't know, it's World of Goo, hence the name. But it's a cute little puzzle game, and actually one of my more favorite puzzle games from what I recall when I played it back then. And it was a fun game to play with the Wiimote. I believe you can get this on the Switch, so I'll have to kind of dig around to see how I can play this game, but to capture some footage for it this week. But yeah, great game, and one of the better puzzle games out there. And yeah, definitely, I just remember having a lot of fun with this game here when I played it back in the day. Let's see. And next up is G Darius. So this is one of my favorite shoot 'em ups of all time. It's came out late into the PlayStation's lifetime. I think it came out in the year 2000. And I remember this game. I bought this game because I've been a fan of the Darius series, right, during this time, throughout the 90s. I don't think I knew that this game had existed back then, but one day I remember, I think it was me and my brother, we were at some kind of like convention, no, not a convention, I don't know. So some kind of it was like in a kind of a big warehouse looking area, and they just had a bunch of stuff there. I don't think it was just specifically video games, but they had a bin there of just some games, and I saw this game, G Darius. I was like, wait, what is this? I was like, I never heard about it, and so eventually found out that it was a game that had just fairly recently come out at that time. And ultimately, it's a 2.5D shooter, so it's a side-scrolling perspective, but with polygonal characters, and just a lot of fun shoot 'em up action. That's typical of the Darius games. You get the same sort of power-up system where you keep getting these power-ups to level up your weapons, but you want to try to stay alive, so to keep yourself powered up. Otherwise, if you get killed, you power down. But the one thing that makes this series interesting, though, is its enemies are sort of like a marine, sort of like robotic enemies, and gives it a unique look where you'll be finding these huge, like fishes or uh, octopuses and squids, but all mechanical, and so definitely gives it an interesting look. And so the shoot 'em up action on this one is really well done. The graphics are pretty outstanding for it at the time, as the polygonal backdrops and ships and all that make for some pretty cool set piece moments. I mean, like there's like two levels in this where basically the whole level is where you're fighting a humongous like robotic fish. And the other thing that really makes this game epic is the soundtrack by I think the group is called Zatanna. Tato used them for a lot of their games, and yeah, they have an amazing style and really goes well with this game and elevates the action a lot more. Right, it's such a kick-ass soundtrack. And definitely a cool shooter. It was fairly recently released for like the modern consoles. So I have it on the Switch right now, and I know you can probably get it on the PlayStation, possibly the Xbox. I would assume maybe on Steam, but not sure. But yeah, if you like shoot 'em ups, you've never played this game, definitely check it out. It's one of for me personally one of my favorite 2D shooters. It's truly outstanding. And last up, we go way back into roughly about 1986 or 7 when this game would have come out, but it's for Black Belt. And this was on the Sega Master System. One of the early games that I played on this system back when I was a kid, I never owned it, but my cousins did. And so they had the Sega Master System too. And so they would get games that we never had. And so that way we were able to trade between us. So got to experience a decent amount of the library of the Sega Master System, at least the North American releases here, when I was a kid. And this was one of them that I remember borrowing from them. And in Japan, this game was based off of their anime and manga Fist of the North Star. But here in the United States, they just the main character is just a dude like in a karate gi, and it's basically sort of like a side-scrolling action beat 'em up game. Only as far as your regular enemies, just one hit and they're dead pretty much. But then you fight like these little mini bosses, and so that part and all, it's a bit difficult. But once you get there's a certain rhythm to the game that once you get into it and all, actually gets pretty fun. But the other thing that stands out about this game is once you reach the end of a level, you end up fighting like a boss in a one-on-one fight, and those are pretty fun too as well, and can be pretty challenging. I mean, the game is pretty hard, but still, I don't know. Maybe it's nostalgia, but I have a lot of fond memories of this game, and definitely one of my more favorite games on the Sega Master System. But that's what I got here for the games of Role of Gaming. So if you've played any of these, would love to hear some of your feedback on them. Or if you haven't, at the very least, hopefully it gave you a bit of you were able to jot them down for your own backlog, right? So maybe you might be able to try them at some point. But let's get now, though, into some modern gaming stuff and modern gaming news. And so usually what I do in this segment is I try to cover the news as much as possible. If you're new here, it's, I'm not trying to be like an in-depth, up-to-the-moment news channel, so to speak. It's just more taking some of the news that's happened and providing some insight on it, but more in a casual way, right? So kind of think about it like you're just, talking video games with your friend, right? And on you kind of caught up with some of the news, right? That's sort of the way I try to approach this here. But I do try to stay up on top as much as I can, just because I do, I'm such a video game geek and all that I like watching like, video game related stuff. But that's just kind of the purpose of this segment here. And sometimes what I'll do also is if there's like a recent game that I'm playing, then I'll talk about that as well too. But kind of starting off on a bit of a bummer, but just because he was pretty influential in the video game industry, I did want to pay respects to this here. So we had a video game creator or developer, Yoshi, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, but Yoshihisa Kishimoto. And so he lived from 1961 to just recently passed this year. But he was behind a lot of legendary games like Double Dragon, River City Ransom, but also looks like he might have had a hand in like in things like Road Blasters too. So definitely some legendary games that left their mark on the video game industry that influenced a lot of games going forward after that. As you know, Double Dragon and River City Ransom. I've actually talked about those games. Well, I've put up some videos of those on my YouTube Shorts fairly recently, and they were very influential with getting the beat 'em up genre going. That was lasted for many years. That were really popular. And Road Blasters just has some pretty incredible scaling effects. For being an early 3D game back in the day. But yeah, you'll be missed, sir. Thank you for your contributions to this industry, and best of peace. Let's see, but let's start kind of getting into here. So we actually I had a few things here to cover. So I'm going to try to sort of split them up here, starting with like multi-platform stuff, or just video games in general, and then go from Nintendo, Xbox, and PlayStation. But starting with like just games overall, right? So Ubisoft might be in some more hot waters due to a French lawsuit. And so my understanding of this, I believe I took some information on this here. Did I? Yes. Okay. So I don't know if I talked about it in one of my previous episodes, but so this all kind of started with a game that was launched back in 2014. So it was The Crew. It was like a racing game. And I don't know much about it. It's just some kind of an online racing game, I believe, or maybe it has a single player campaign. I'm not sure. But ultimately, that game was it I mean it's for these kind of games that have like car licenses and whatnot, and I don't know if this game did or not, like I don't know if they're fictional cars or not, but it's kind of common that those games get removed from like digital storefronts just because it costs a lot of money to renew the car licenses, and a lot of publishers in the they're just not going to do that. This game though went a step further there, where they revoked the game license from anyone that actually owned the game through Ubisoft Connect. Like my understanding is, if you own the game, it would still get removed. So, yeah, that caused a bit of backlash, right? I mean, I don't know how popular this game was, but the fact that that would get done to any game that you spent some money on, that's a concern there. So, from what I understand, so there was that lawsuit there, right? Um, because the game, again, it launched in 2014, and so I think it was around 2024 when they shut the game down. So this led to a class action lawsuit in France, which is also that's where Ubisoft is based out of. And so I'm just kind of reading verbatim here from something I'm seeing on the net. So the lawsuit, which is led by French consumers group UFC-QA Choicer, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, and has the backing of the larger Stop Killing Games movement. So I don't know if we've talked about this. So basically, and it was started with this game. So the point of it, right, is that just what it says, right? Stop killing games, stop delisting games. And so it argues that Ubisoft infringed upon consumer rights and players by taking away access of a game that they had already paid for. So that's sort of the gist of it. So now, like I said, right now there's an actual lawsuit that Ubisoft is facing now on this, and so I hope something comes of this. I'm not too um, optimistic that it'll really change the way these digital games are being distributed and whatnot. But I do hope something comes of this, because it is highly unfortunate, right, that this is the case. If you paid for something, it should be yours to own, right? This whole, you'll own nothing and be happy for it. I know that that's the world we're heading into, but it's quite frankly bullshit, right? And I know I say that, coming from someone that mainly buys digital now for a lot of reasons I've already explained, but I do still feel, right, that there should be a sense of ownership on this. And so in a perfect world, we would have physical copies of games for people that like having physical copies, or if you choose to buy it digitally, that you can buy it for slightly cheaper. Yeah, but that that there's some kind of laws or something like that put in place, right, where you can continue having access to these games one way or the other. I know that that's probably a whole cluster of things that would need to be put in place, right, for that to happen. Like as far as like where are these games going to be held, because eventually these companies are probably going to shut down the service and whatnot. But that would be in a perfect world, and so I know we don't live in a perfect world, but hopefully at least this lawsuit will make some kind of strides towards that. But I don't know. I'm not too optimistic, but at the very least, I'm glad that there's a fight being put out there for these kind of things to, have some kind of, you know, consumer friendly moves done on this, right, to protect the consumer, because it is. it's bad that this happens, right? When you bought a game and then it just gets delisted like that. I mean, that's because eventually that spills out to like movies and music and whatnot. Also, I mean, that's a problem. And I know that they've already been doing that to an extent. Even Kindle, I believe, too, to some extent. I don't know the full details on that, but it's the reality of just owning digitally. Excuse me, digitally now. But I would hope that there'd be some further pushback on that. So I'm kind of happy to see that, and hopefully something comes of that there. Other news I wanted to touch base on because it's a game that I was I was interested in, and I was it got announced like I don't know maybe 2 to 3 years ago at one of the Game Awards I believe, but it was for Star Wars Eclipse. So it's a Star Wars game, but it was being developed by Quantic Dream, and so they're known for like games like Heavy Rain. Um, what was the other game? Beyond Two Souls, is that what it's called? But then also the more recent Detroit Become Human. So their games are very story based, right? Where it has some gameplay, where it's more like QTE button prompts, but their storytelling, though, style and all the choices that you can make are really makes for a really immersive experience. As Heavy Rain was great, I played and beat that one. What I played of Detroit Become Human was pretty good, also, and also that I think it's called Beyond Two Souls. That game also I beat that one. That one's a little different, but I still enjoyed it. So I'm thinking of a Star Wars game done in that sense. That has me intrigued, but it looks like the game is in trouble. So, from my understanding, it looks like they're just running out of funding or something like that to try to complete this game. And another thing that I didn't quite know, but it looks like they had some kind of a live service game out there, and it seems like they had that game to try to make them some more profit so that they can continue funding some of their big single player experiences. But it seems like that hasn't been doing that well. And honestly, I don't know a whole lot about that game there, but that's just something that I read. But either way, though, it looks like this game is in a bit of hot water. So I didn't see anything specifically that it's put on ice, but it seems like this one might have a hard time coming to the finish line. So I'll try to keep an eye on this story. As again, it was a game that I had my interest on it. Right, I thought that concept of a story based Star Wars game like this, right, seemed interesting. But we'll see what comes of it, and hopefully they can find the funding to complete the game, and it ends up being a pretty decent game as well, too. Let's see, but let's go over to Nintendo now. So Nintendo had some things here, and so the Nintendo Switch Online, the Nintendo app, so the original one, it had 3 new releases on it, and so that was kind of some odd releases, but it's. I mean, I'm all for like again, any game getting re-released, but sometimes the choices that they make are a bit interesting. But what is Pac-Man and the Nintendo version of Pac-Man, which is not bad. I mean, Pac-Man is a classic, right? So okay, sure, yeah, Pac-Man, right? But then there was 2 games that I've never heard about. One of them is Mendel Palace, and the other one is Druaga. I think it's how you pronounce it. I could be wrong. Again, I just saw like a quick trailer of it, and I just jotted some of those down real quick, so I could be wrong on this. But Mendel Palace, I think I saw that it was developed by Game Freak, so they're the people behind the Pokemon games, and I think this could have been their first game. And then Druaga, I think it was Druaga that's the one that, from what they showed, it had like a Japanese box art. So I'm assuming it's some kind of a game from Japan, and I'm not sure. Mendel Palace and Druaga, I'm not 100% sure what they're all about, but they are on the Nintendo Switch Online, and I believe they came out on there yesterday on the 9th. So I'm recording this on the 10th of April. So I think on the 9th of April is when they had released. There was a leak. I didn't see where this leak came from, but I did see one quick like short video of it where all I heard was that it was from a reliable leaker. That doesn't sound right. But that there's potentially a Luigi's Mansion 4 going to be coming out for the Nintendo Switch 2, I would assume. And so that's pretty cool because there was also some other things too. Again, I don't know the full extent of it. I just saw a headline on it, but it seemed to be coming from a lot of reputable sources. That so Charlie Day, the actor that's been doing Luigi from the Super Mario movies, that he somehow said something more or less confirming that there will be a Luigi's Mansion movie coming out, and that's actually pretty cool though. I'm interested in that, and so kind of seems to make sense, right, to tie it in with a video game as well too. And so that's cool. I'm glad that Luigi's Mansion game is getting more love. As still haven't been part 1, but what I have played of it, I'm enjoying my time with it. It's definitely feels that need of like playing something that's a little spooky but also kid friendly. And so it's a fun side series, right, to the whole Mario thing, where the the lesser or the less popular brother has sort of his own series, and just kind of makes him a bit more popular as well too. But speaking of that, Mario movie looks like it's making a killing at the box office. So for all the crap that it was getting right from the big divide between like the critics and the audience on that, it's making a lot of money, and so that's pretty cool because I think that's cool that Nintendo's doing this. Trying to do like their own little movie universe, and because I mean, they're seems like they're pretty profitable, so hopefully they can continue with that. And because I'm actually more and more I'm looking forward to that Legend of Zelda movie. There was a reports that came out that they're filming in a lot of the same areas that they did the Lord of the Rings movie, so I'm assuming it's going to have like certain cinematic shots, kind of like that we had with Lord of the Rings, with some of the similar landscapes and all. And I think that's cool. And so more and more, I'm getting more excited about that movie. I haven't really heard much more about it other than what I've talked about some episodes back and what they've been released publicly. But yeah, so that's all cool there and all. And so yeah, I mean, looks like they're making a killing. But speaking of Zelda, though, so there was some other information that came out. Again, I didn't quite see where this is coming from, but it seems to be speculated that Monolith, so they're the developers behind the X-Blade Chronicle series, is developing this Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time remake. So that's interesting. Monolith, from what I've played of like the Xenoblade games, they have incredibly detailed, expansive open worlds. And I know that they helped out with, I believe, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom too, as far as like to help finish those games or at least set up the open world. So they definitely have experience in that there. So if this is true, that definitely seems to lend more credence to the rumors that the Legend of Zelda remake might be more in line with like Breath of the Wild, right? So interesting, right? Um, we'll see. I'm keeping a very open mind to this, right? I'm gonna trust Nintendo on this. I think I talked about it last episode, right? My hope would be that they would just make like a prettier version of it, like a really nice looking Ocarina of Time, but not mess with the gameplay formula too much. But at the same time, if you're doing that, then what's the point, kind of thing? So if you really mix it up, right? I don't know. I mean, it has me intrigued, right? I mean, if we're going more open world and all, I still want a graphical style though that's a bit more in line with that tech demo that we saw back when the Wii U first came out. I want something or some kind of more real, darker, mature look to the game, right? Instead of like the cell shaded look. And but I don't know. I feel like if they do it that way though, then that might be harder to pull off. I mean, the Switch 2 is a fairly powerful little system, but then Monolith, I mean, they're really talented developers, but then have they done anything like that really? Like all of their games have been more like anime aesthetic like, which I mean, Zelda kind of is. I don't know. I'm going all over the place with this, but I'm keeping an open mind still to it. We will see what comes of this. I mean, I'm assuming we'll know something later here soonish. I'm going to assume by summertime we should know or some more information on it, like officially from Nintendo. But that's the rumor going out. Again, not confirmed or anything, but that, again, Monolith, creators of the Xenoblade Chronicle series, are developing this game, or at least have a big hand in developing this game. So we'll see what comes out of all that there. Let's see. So getting on into Xbox, though. So starting off, looks like a little bit of a public service announcement. There was a issue with the batteries on controllers for the Xbox. So let's see. I just took a quick snapshot of this here. Um, so Xbox controllers have been shipping without batteries for months, but Microsoft is finally compensating people. So if you've received an Xbox controller without the promised batteries, you can request a free rechargeable USB-C battery. So Microsoft has acknowledged that it accidentally released some Xbox controllers without including batteries. To make up for it, Xbox is offering compensation in the form of a free rechargeable battery as opposed to the standard AAA batteries it should have come with. This mishap impacted only a limited number of controllers. Microsoft said that this has been an ongoing since December 2025. Anybody who received an Xbox controller without batteries can visit the website. Uh, or what looks like on this story that I'm reading. Sorry, it says visit this website and it's a link, but I don't see what the actual link is. I just took a screenshot to fill out a form to request a free rechargeable battery. So yeah, so just FYI. So because again, with Xbox controllers, they don't have rechargeable batteries built into them. You can add one, but they just come with the standard AAA batteries, which that's a whole other argument there. If as far as for people that prefer that or not, but they come at least with some, right, to get you going. At least you get to start playing. But looks like several of them didn't ship with them. So there you go. But some more Xbox news though. Let's see, because we had a few things regarding Xbox. So it looks like there was Halo drama. So it seems like let's see. I took some screenshots of this too. Again, as I'm just kind of um, sometimes what I do is like at times when I'm working, I can have like my headphones on while I'm working and all, and so I'll just sometimes like watch like random YouTube stuff and all. And so every now and then, if there's like a story that comes out, I'll just let it play. And but I'm busy working, so I can't like make my detailed notes. And also, what I'll do, I'll just take like a quick screenshot. I was like, okay, I'll come back to that later. So that's kind of what happened with this one here. But I'll just read some two screenshots that I took here of something that happened with this whole Halo drama that happened this week. So let's see. The art director of Halo Infinite and veteran developer on the franchise is accusing senior staff at Halo Studios of numerous unlawful attacks. Glenn Israel worked on the Halo franchise for 17 years. He began in April 2010 but left Halo Studios in October of 2025. In LinkedIn posts, Israel states that between January 2024 and June 2025, he witnessed several unethical and unlawful acts by senior staffers at the studio, including but not limited to blacklisting, fraud, rampant favoritism, uh, chronism manifesting as hiring and career growth interference, and multiple harassment campaigns designed to provoke the constructive discharge of unwanted employees otherwise in good standing. Damn. He goes on to say that he filed several complaints with Microsoft's HR. Then, in June of 2025, a senior global employee relations representative threatened retaliation on first contact and promised to quash any further investigation. Israel goes on to accuse the representative of engaging in a 4-day long harassment to manufacture a cause for his termination in July of 2025. So in a second post, it says he suspects Microsoft routinely contrives or exploits layoffs to get rid of employees who file proper and effective complaints. Also, he suspects that organizations and investigations within the Microsoft HR department are deliberately compartmentalized to create plausible deniability. So here's a quote here, I believe, from him. So I know that our industry is truly in dire straits now, but as a matter of public interest, I cannot in good conscience recommend seeking employment at this organization or continuing there if you have any other option. Your effort and expertise are not respected. You are not fairly compensated. If you refuse to engage in political gamesmanship, your career will stall. If you object, you will be forced out. I have the evidence. You are not safe. Damn. And so then following up to that, Xbox replied here. So it looks like this is a statement that they put on April 4th, so fairly recently. It just says an Xbox spokesperson. But we have received a comment from Microsoft regarding the allegation. So quote, out of respect, we don't publicly discuss individual employee issues, but we do take all claims seriously for both current and former employees. Well, I mean, there you go. I don't know much else other than that right there. So, I mean, if his statements are true, then yeah, hopefully there is an investigation done there. And, I will say, and again, without knowing further detail outside of what I just read right there, right? I will say that, like, I'm lucky right now where I work at. I work for a company that I do like. For the most part, I mean, it's not my dream job, what I do in my day job, but it's a job, and I don't mind it actually. It's the job itself is, well, it's work, right? But the people, the overall organization that I work for, and all, it's pretty well structured, it's pretty well managed, and so having been there now for like about 2 years and a half now, I can say that I do feel comfortable there. Uh, and so it's been nice because prior to that, I've worked for some companies that are just horrible and horrible management, horrible just structure, and so much backstabbing, so much gaslighting, and that after a while I got tired of it, honestly, and and I know, and it's tough times right now, right? So, there's really no like good advice that I can give as far as like, if you are in a situation like that. But if at all possible, just know that there can be something better out there for you. Um, and if you are in a situation where you can't find anything, but because obviously the economy sucks right now, just pray for you and hopefully you'll find something better. Because I've been in many situations like that where just a horrible work environment, and it's just a unfortunate reality of when you're working for a business that is just horribly mismanaged. And because it starts at the top down, right? If the top management and all is just not setting a good cultural experience as far as for their work environment and all, it just stems down and seeps into everything, right? Because you can have a bad manager, right, or you can have a bad employee, but if the top management has certain ethical values and rules in place, then they'll weed those out. But if the very top is toxic, then well, it's going to seep into everything. And I mean, I've experienced that far too many times, and so I'm kind of glad where I'm at right now. And my hope is that if you're not doing your own thing, where you have your own business and everything, and you're just unfortunately have to work for a company for someone else, at the very least I hope that you can find something that it's going to at least respect you as an individual and respect everyone as an individual, and where obviously there's always going to be things that happen, but at the very least, right, and all that, there's a good structure in place to that for the most part, right, and all, hate yourself each day for going to work. But thought that was interesting, but I'm kind of curious to follow up on that story a little bit more, as that sounds a little interesting there. But another quick story here, though. So it looks like for some people, and it doesn't seem to see like specifically how or why, but some people had an Xbox offer that they can upgrade to an Xbox Series X or S for a discount. And so the story that I saw, it seemed like there wasn't really like a specific like who was receiving this, like if it was certain regions, and it also seemed to be people that had the Xbox One X. So if you booted it up, and then on your dashboard there would be like a thing that said like this is an Xbox offer. So you click on it, and then it gives you some deals for the system. So for example, here the screenshot that I took here. Uh, so the Xbox One X, I believe, with the is it the 2 terabyte one? I'm not sure, but let's see. But I mean, some pretty decent discounts, anywhere from like 32% to 40, or I'm sorry, to 50%. But there's like one version for $543.99. I think that's like one of the higher SKU ones, or the one with like the 2 terabyte, I believe. And then there's another one for $396.49, another one for $347.99, and then one for $300. So that's a decent discount there, but it seems like it's for a limited time. At the time that I took the screenshot, it only says 6 days. And so again, there seems to be some confusion as far as like who received this offer and all, but it seems like it's legitimate coming from Xbox. So if you're one of the lucky ones and you wanted an Xbox system, there you go. Let's see, but what else here for Microsoft? I think I jotted down some other things here. Okay, and so yeah, so just it seems like the backwards compatibility for the Xbox is making some kind of a comeback. Excuse me, of some sort. There was some people were noticing that there was some previously removed Xbox games that were on the backwards compatible before that they briefly appeared and then disappeared from the Xbox store, and so causing a lot of speculation that these games might be coming back in some sort, and not only these games but also potentially a lot more. So we again, that's all that we know as of right now, at least at the time that I'm recording this. Again, on April 10th. But it's two of the games that were mentioned, though, that they briefly saw appear on there was Armed and Dangerous and Prince of Persia. So Armed and Dangerous was a game that who did that game. So I'm gonna see if I can look it up here while I'm talking. But it was kind of a weird game. It was it's like a kind of like a third person shooter, I guess. But I remember that one of the weapons that you can use on it was like these sharks. Like you could send like these shark bombs, uh, and it looked interesting. But is it from LucasArts or okay, yeah. Okay, here we go. So, Armed and Dangerous is a humorous third-person shooter video game from 2003 by Planet Moon Studios and LucasArts, featuring a ragtag rebel group called the Lionhearts on a quest to overthrow a tyrannical king using the over-the-top weapons like Topsy-Turvy Bomb and the low rocket launcher. Okay, yeah, I just remember like you can like it's like these sharks that come out of the ground or something like that. So that's one thing that I remember about this game. I never actually played it back in the day, but it seemed always interesting. And so yeah, apparently it was backwards compatible at one point. That game again was on the original Xbox, but it got delisted for one reason or the other. But it looks like it made a brief appearance. So possibly that game might be coming back. And also Prince of Persia, which I believe was the Sands of Time. That game is just excellent all around. And so yeah, so hopefully they bring those games back where you can you know, purchase them, I guess, right, on some kind of a digital storefront. But so Asha, so the CEO there, right? I mean, she seems to be making some moves there at Xbox that is sparking some hope for that system. It looks like I don't know if it's out already or it's coming out, but it looks like the achievements on the Xbox are getting some kind of an overhaul. Again, this is just something I saw the headline on, and so just jotted it down. So I don't know the full specifics of it, but from what I kind of understood from one dude that I was watching, it seems like it's trying to mimic more or less kind of what the PlayStation trophies were doing, where like you have like a platinum trophy or something to that effect, and which people tend to prefer more the trophies than the achievements, from what it sounds like. I'm not much of a trophy hunter or an achievements. You know, I know. I mean, it's cool when I get them and all, but I'm not someone that like needs to get all of them right and all. As I just like to prefer. I love playing a variety of different games instead of just like devoting all my time to one game to try to get all these achievements and all. But I think it's very cool because there's other things in life that I do feel I like to kind of like check off a bunch of things off a list, right? So, and I'm amazed that I'm not like that with video games because I am kind of like that with other things in life. But I know that I mean, trophies and achievements are a big reason why people play games. And so, from what it seems like, it's getting some kind of an overhaul. And from it sounds like from some things that I saw in it, people seem to be excited about this. So that's cool. Hopefully, that'll make a lot of cool consumer friendly choices on that on whatever they choose to do with it. So I don't know. Xbox, they're making some moves. Maybe that's what this company needed was someone like Osha to come in and change things around. So again, we'll see. I mean, it all comes down to ultimately, you know, what they choose to do. That, and we'll find more about it out in the next several months and probably years or so. But at the very least, there is some optimism there, and so that's cool, right? I mean, Xbox is sort of like was kind of dead in a way, but this seems to be bringing it back to life to some extent, and so hopefully that'll be the case. As I feel like they need to be in this video game industry for competition's sake, if anything else. All right, but let's jump over to the PlayStation now. And so Cyberpunk 2077 got yet another update, only this time it was on the PS5 Pro. So we got an official patch on it. I was trying it out late last night. I wanted to see what it's all about. And because you can get the Cyberpunk on the PlayStation Plus subscription. And so because of cross progression, I was able to carry over one of my save files that I've been having on my Switch too. And so got to play it a bit last night. I didn't do like a complete deep dive into it. So basically, it has three modes now. There's the performance mode, which is, it can, from what I was seeing, it can bump up the frame rate up to like around 90 frames per second or so. So if you want just like a blazingly fast frames per second experience, then this would be the one to go to. I mean, the game looks pretty striking, very fast frame rate. And so one way to go. But then there's the ray trace mode. In this mode here, it gives you some ray tracing along with running at a pretty steady 60 frames per second from what I can tell. And then there's the Ray Trace Pro version. And what this does is that it adds further ray tracing effects, but the frame rate is at 30 frames per second. But if you have a display that does VRR, then it can bump it up to roughly about 40 frames per second or so. So making it look like a little bit smoother. But again, you have to have a display that supports VRR. So I was messing around with the three modes yesterday, and so the performance mode, yeah, I mean it's fast, and it looks amazing, right? Cyberpunk with all the updates that it's had and everything looks amazing. The ray tracing plus or the just the ray tracing mode runs at 60 frames per second, and ray tracing is one of those things where I sometimes see it and like the reflections and all. It's like, okay, that's cool, but that's really it though, right? But so I'm not like I don't know. I guess I can kind of care less for ray tracing. But if you give me a ray tracing mode with a good resolution and runs at 60 frames per second, then I'll go with that option, right? As long as it's a smooth 60 frames per second. But I was messing around with the ray tracing pro mode, and so I have a display that has VRR. And at first, I was like, "Is this 60 frames per second?" And I was like, "No, not quite." And so I have an OLED TV, so you push on a if you bring up a certain menu, it shows the frame rate on there. And so it said it was running at 120, but from what I understand, I don't know the whole technicality of it, but if it says it's running at 120, but it's really 30 frames per second, somehow it divides that up still, and ultimately, long story short, it comes out to more like around 40 frames per second. And I mean, it ran fairly smooth, right? So if you have the display for it, and if you really wanted, the more expanded on ray tracing modes, uh, then that'd be, one option to go for, right? But again, you're just not going to get the full 60 frames per second experience. So I was kind of, like I was looking at this puddle in the game, and I was switching between the three, and I mean, I was like, I don't really see a difference. So I don't know. I think that like I used to be very sensitive to like things like this in prior generations, but ever since really like okay, so when like the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X started coming out, and they were talking about like higher resolution, higher frame rate, and all, that's where it got to the point where I was like, I don't really see much of a difference. And because I kind of regretted buying the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One X back then, because I was like, I don't really see it. And I had the TV to support it. And it's kind of the same thing now where I'm like, okay, am I dumb? Like, am I missing something here? And there are some instances where, like the ray tracing, like the reflections, where it just looks more like I don't know the terms for it, but it almost also looks like a texture there instead of actual reflection. And I was like, oh, okay, I can see that. But then I'm like, but what's the big deal? I mean, it's not. It's just a reflection. It doesn't really add or take away anything. The pseudo effect, I guess, if you want to call it that, on the performance one looks good enough, right? Especially if you're looking at it as a whole picture, instead of just like focusing in on one little area. But I don't know. That's just me personally. I mean, I'm looking at Cyberpunk, and so I was, so then I just left it on the ray tracing before, or just a regular ray tracing mode. So again, some ray tracing effects with 60 frames per second. I'm like, this looks incredible, right? This looks amazing, and that's the version I'll play for, because even though it looks fairly smooth on my TV with the ray trace pro mode, I still want that 60 frames per second if I can get it, and so that'll be the version to get there. And I mean, like I said, it looks nice. So yeah, I'll continue my cyberpunk experience through there. And yeah, I mean, in actually the area that I played in, because again, I just checked it out for a little bit last night, was in a nighttime area, and so I'll be curious to check out more of a daytime area, and to get more about what it's all about on that mode there. But there's some rumors, though, that Uncharted 5 might be making its way over to us at some point. So this is by some dude named Tom Henderson. I've heard his name a lot before. I don't quite know exactly what he does, but it seems to be a pretty credible person in the video game industry. But according to him, so he stated that the idea of Uncharted 5 has been floated around Naughty Dog for quite a while now, but just nothing concrete has come of it. So again, it sounds like it's something that they're still pondering pretty heavily, but just nothing has come from it. And I'm sure right now they're busy with Intergalactic and all, but still, that'll be, I guess. I don't know if I mean, if it's done well, I'm not going to hate it. But I just felt that Uncharted 4 ended in a way that was very satisfying. And for me, like let that series just kind of like have its honorable, you know, discharge, if you will, right? It was an amazing series. I loved it. Just keep re-releasing the games in the years to come, right? But other than that, just, it's good. It's done, right? It had its time. But, if there is an Uncharted 5, I'd also be lying to say if I wasn't somewhat curious about it. But the PlayStation 5 also seems like it might have some kind of a UI update, possibly sometime this month. it seems like there's from what people were looking at some things on this, it seems like it might kind of go to like a little bit like what the PlayStation 4 was doing, where if you remember on the PlayStation 4, you can create like folders that were part of the UI and then you scroll down. So like let's say if I make a folder of like RPGs and then I put all the games in that folder, and then if I scroll down from that folder, then you can see all the games that I put in that folder if I recall right. So something to that effect, and then possibly themes is what people are speculating. That's about as much as I saw in the headlines on there. But yeah, so that'll be interesting to see, if they do end up overhauling the UI on it. I don't mind the PlayStation 5 UI on it, but I definitely, if I remember, I really like the PlayStation 4 one because I remember I used to categorize all my games and all in a way that was just easier for me to find. And I don't know, I like to categorize a lot of things, so that's one thing that I remember when the PlayStation 5 did come out. I was a bit annoyed by it, but I've just gotten used to it now. But if they bring anything back like that, then that'd be pretty cool. But another update though is speculation is that there will be a state of play next week, and from the 16th was the day that was thrown around, and so that seems to be next Thursday. So we will see what that's all about. That is interesting. I'm assuming that they've already talked about Sorrows because that game comes out at the end of the month. Wolverine, possibly. That'd be pretty cool. I mean, I'm looking forward to that game. Final Fantasy VII Part 3. I doubt it. I kind of doubt it. Actually, I heavily doubt it because it's not really part of PlayStation anymore. And I still feel like they want to, now that we know that Rebirth is coming out on the Switch 2 and the Xbox, excuse me, in June, I still feel like they're going to wait until those versions are out. And so I'm still going to guesstimate sometime after that, which, so the popular choice is for Summer's Game Fest. And I'm going to stick with that too also. I think that that's where they'll show something, but I sure wouldn't hate it, right? If they announce something, but I kind of doubt it though. But we'll see if anything comes of that. I guess I'd be curious to see what else they might announce. I don't know. With a lot of the Sony shows, there just hasn't really been much to get excited for, which is interesting because they were usually one of the more better shows, right, on what you would anticipate a lot of the games coming from. But we'll see. But Marathon, though, looks like it just has not been doing good. Um, so we've talked about it a little bit already, so I don't want to keep beating on the dead horse here, but just from what it looks like, Marathon is just not putting up the numbers. And so I saw some headlines on this, and I did watch one video that they were talking about how, it's just not doing very well. And so like, I don't follow these numbers too much, right? Or I don't know, I guess, the full extent of this, like if this is good, if this is bad. But just as of right now, so I just Googled it right now on Steam database. So for the player counts, right, on the Steam charts. So make of this of what you will, right, if you're into this stuff. So all time peak last month was 88,337 players. 24-hour peak was 26,913 players right now as of 7:23 a.m. on April 10th. It is at 12,949. From what it sounds like, that's not that good. And so again, right, it's the issue with this also is that this is also a big budget Sony PlayStation game. It's a game that they threw a lot of money at. And so if they're not meeting these numbers, right? Like those numbers, I don't know for sure, right? But they might be decent for another lower scale game. But this is like a huge budget game for Sony, and if this is failing, there's a few things on that. What does that say for Sony packed games, right? And also live service games as well too. We talked about it the other day about Fortnite and all. If that's failing, what chance do other live service games have nowadays? So this could be just another nail in that coffin that's trying to put live service games out permanently. But we will see. I don't think it's going to go completely overnight, but it does seem to be trending in that direction. Yeah, and I mean, live service games, I still feel like there's a place for them. It's just that where you're trying to do everything live service, that's where I think the issue is, and I think that's what a lot of people have issues because obviously live service games are popular. They wouldn't be chasing that golden goose if it wasn't because they weren't. But I just think that when you're overcrowding the market with them, that's where the issues come in here. But
that's just my speculation, as I've said before, right? And that's not my area of where I like the game, so take my opinion for a grain of salt, right? But the last story I'll finish up on here, and so this is kind of a interesting one, but it's so I mean, all companies are trying to do this to an extent, but specifically Microsoft, and also looks like Sony too. But it's incorporated AI into games, and so before we've talked about how Microsoft might be using Copilot eventually, like on their Project Helix system, and then with Sony, we've talked a bit about AI too, also like as far as like if it gives you like tips on a game or I kind of forgot what we talked about a few episodes back. But anyways, like they're trying to incorporate it somehow. Well, the next story that's come out is that Sony officially announced that they will be introducing this player-based thing where it can have like your likeness scanned into a game. So they're going to be starting this off with Gran Turismo 7. So somehow it'll scan your face, I guess, and your I don't know what else, and that way you'll be a playable character basically in a game to some extent. I don't know exactly how that all works and all, but that seems to be what's going on. And so at first, I mean, it seems like okay, cool, right? You're scanning your face in, and like, I mean, there's games where you create your own character. A lot of times, you create it to your own likeness. So this is just taking it a bit further. But like with everything with AI and all, the concern is that now I mean, every not to get on conspiracy theory here and all, but the government already has your information. So what's the harm, right? And just giving them a little bit more information. But I don't know. This sounds kind of eerie, almost in a way, almost like what's that show, Black Mirror, I guess. But I don't know. It's interesting. Again, I didn't do too much of a deep dive on this story, and actually, I think it might be something here that I might try to get a little bit more information on as I'm going to start working here soon, and just to kind of get more background on this. But that's the main story there, right? That it's looks like they're going to be doing this for a few games, and I can see how this can cause some concern there, right? Not only for like what information is being taken from you, but then at the same time too, it's like okay, so we're putting players likeness, like your own likeness, into a game. What does that say for like I don't know, like I mean, I guess it's not a bad thing necessarily, right? And all, but I think it's taken away from like say like actors that might want to be in a game, but now they could just use fans likeness in the game. I don't know. I mean, but it also seems like that'd be jobs that would be missed out, or that people can't get now that otherwise they would have like their likeness in the game. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I don't know. It's interesting. Not something I'm personally excited for, but we'll kind of see how the story goes. But I think it's just one thing that we have to start getting used to, and that is that AI is here. Skynet is taking over. Hopefully, just not in the way that we saw in the Terminator movies, but AI is here though, and you know, yeah. Well, we already talked about that, but yeah, AI.
Let's get into it now, though, here with the year of 2015 in gaming. Before I start that, though, I did want to make a mention, though, of something that I forgot to mention last year, because I thought it was something that was pretty cool and was kind of like ended up becoming a what if sort of game, as ultimately we never got it, but we got a hell of a teaser for it. And that was, so there was a demo that came out, so it was in 2014, and I want to say I think it just dropped out of nowhere. Like I don't think there was any lead up to it or anything like anybody talking about it, and all of a sudden it was just there in the PlayStation Store, if I recall. And it was for this demo. It was just simply called PT. And the cover, I guess the thumbnail of the demo, it just had like looked like it was like in a forest somewhere. And so, for people that played it, it was anything but being in a forest, but you were just in this, you were in a house and you were just going down this hallway in this house. But the graphics were pretty well detailed, and it had definitely had a very creepy vibe about it. And so all you're doing is you're going down a hallway, you take a right turn, and then you're kind of in the front area of the house, and then you keep going forward, and then you go down the stairs, open a door, and then when you open that door, it loops you back to the start of the hallway. And that's all it is, right? You're just kind of going down this hallway, and then it keeps repeating itself. But each time you go down the hallway again, something different happens. And it's a combination of like sound effects and like this radio talking to you and some pretty messed up stuff too also, right? Ultimately, the way this demo ends is pretty horrifying. I don't want to spoil anything here. If you get a way of checking this demo out, I'll leave that up to you. If you've never heard about this, but it was a really cool thing. And so then once the demo ends, though, it it shows like you're out in a downtown area. So I think it's raining in nighttime and all, and then all of a sudden you see this man walking, and then it's shows up a close up of his face, and it's someone that looks that's the likeness is taken off of the actor Norman Reedus, who he's done like anything from like the Boondock Saints, definitely probably more popular in The Walking Dead as Daryl, and also he was the one of the assistants in the movie Blade 2. I just watched that the other day, and I was like, oh hey, it's Norman Reedus. He was pretty young there, but and then after that it ends that the actually it's Silent Hills, if I recall right. I think it's called not Silent Hill, but Silent Hills by Konami, by Kojima Productions, so basically Hideo Kojima behind it, and Guillermo del Toro. So Guillermo del Toro, he's the director that's done a lot of great movies, like the first two Hellboy movies, also more recently like the Frankenstein movie, and so that was a hell of a like tease, right? And we're like, what? There's a new like Silent Hill like game with Norman Reedus and Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro. We're like, what is this? And the demo is very atmospheric, very creepy, and you can kind of tell that it wasn't so much like it seems like they weren't trying to like show you a snippet of the game that they were working on, but more just kind of like to show you the tone and the style that they're going for. And it was very horrific, right? Like I said, I'll let you play the demo on your, I'll back up on that actually here in a bit, but it's definitely creepy, right? The issue was, though, that ultimately that game never came to fruition, right? I don't know the full story of it. I just think that somehow behind the scenes, right, maybe there's scheduling conflicts or also conflict with Hideo Kojima and that Konami had here later on, right? Which we'll try to touch base on that here soon. And so actually, now that I think about it, that was probably a big reason why as well. And probably licensing rights and whatnot. But eventually Hideo Kojima got to use Norman Reedus in his Death Stranding games, which we'll talk about in later years. But it definitely was, it definitely is a game that's like what it could have been, right? They had an interesting premise behind it. And so again, it was only downloadable on this demo, but then eventually what happened, because again, probably because of the fallout from Hideo Kojima and Konami, licensing rights and whatnot, this demo was delisted from the PlayStation 4 store. And so there's really no official way to play the demo anymore. And I hate it because, so my PlayStation 4, I had the demo downloaded on there. I never erased it, but then eventually I got rid of my PlayStation 4 when I got my PlayStation 5 because I'm like, what's backwards compatible? No problem. But then I wasn't even thinking about it. I was like, oh, right. I had the demo on there, that PT, because there's no other way to download it, at least through legal means. There might be a way to like emulate it. I'm not sure, but it's I know that at one point I was seeing PlayStation 4s that had that demo downloaded on it going for a fairly high price. So that's how much it was kind of in demand, right? But yeah, it's that's a pretty cool thing though. So if you get a chance, you could definitely find that on YouTube, and it's interesting, right? So just to kind of give you an idea of what it could have been. So if you just start typing in like just the letter P and then the letter T and then demo, and I'm sure you'll find it all over the place on YouTube. It's pretty horrific, right? But I love the concept of at least the style that they were going for, and just unfortunately, right, just not something that we would see come to full fruition. But all right, let's get now into the year of 2015 by going over some statistics and numbers and all. And so the year 2015 saw releases of numerous video games as well as a follow-up to Nintendo's portable 3DS console, the new Nintendo 3DS. Top-rated games originally released in 2015 included Madden NFL, of course, 2016, NBA 2K16, NBA Live 16, WWE 2K16, so all the regulars, right? And then also we got Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, which is the follow-up right to the Ground Zeroes from last year, so this is the main full game. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which is my favorite game of the year and one of my favorite games of all time. Bloodborne, Undertale, and Fallout 4. Sales of video games in 2015 reached 61 billion, according to analyst firm Superdata, an 8% increase from 2014. Of this, so this is interesting here. Of this, the largest sector was in computer game sales and subscription services, accounting for 32 billion. Mobile game revenues were 25.1 billion, a 10% increase from 2014. Digital sales on consoles made up the remaining 4 billion. So, are we starting to see a trend here, right, from what was going on as far as where we're at right now, as far as the big push for subscription services, digital game sales, and things like that? Now, digital game sales were still a little, I mean, fairly low, right, as far as the overall industry, just because we were, in the seventh generation, there was digital games that were on there, right, and all, but it wasn't still quite the big push. But this is the generation where they really started pushing digital game sales, as pretty much most games that were releasing, right, had a digital version of it. Where now it's kind of flip flopping the other way, where it was before it was some games would come out on digital, but they for the most part had a digital or a physical sale. If it was like a kind of more thinking like a AAA game, obviously not like indie games. But now it's starting to kind of flip the other way. I mean, at the earliest part of this generation, from what I recall, it was there was still a lot of physical games out there, right? But there was still also, but they were starting to put more of them on the digital storefronts on Xbox and on the PlayStation 4, and then to an extent on the Wii U as well. So things were kind of shifting, right? And on obviously we saw this huge push in digital games, or I'm sorry, in subscription services as well too. So things started changing. But let's see. Series with new installments in 2015 include, there's a few of them here, Anno, Assassin's Creed, Batman Arkham, Battlefield, Call of Duty, Disgaea, Dirt, Fallout, Fatal Frame, Five Nights at Freddy's, Forza Motorsport, Guitar Hero, Halo, Heroes of Might and Magic, Hotline, Miami, Just Cause, King Quest, Kirby, Magica, Mario Party, Mario vs. Donkey Kong, Mario and Luigi, Metal Gear, Minecraft, Mortal Kombat, Need for Speed, Oli Oli, Resident Evil, Rock Band, StarCraft, Star Wars, Battlefront, Tales, The Witcher, Tomb Raider, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Total Way, Toy Soldiers, Xenoblade Chronicles, Yakuza, and Yoshi. In addition, 2050 saw introduction of several new properties like Bloodborne, Dying Light, Evolve, Life is Strange, Ori, Rocket League, Splatoon, Undertale, and Until Dawn. But in the United States, the Entertainment Software Association with the NPD Group estimated total video game market revenue at $23.5 billion, a 5% increase from 2014. Of this, the total software market was $16.5 billion, and the NPD Group estimating retail sales subset at $13.1 billion. The ECA reported that there were 2,457 companies in the United States involving in developing and publishing video games that directly supported 65,678 workers, 37,122 in developing, 28,556 in publishing, with another 154,000 indirectly supporting the industry, such as through contracting or video game journalism. The total contribution to the U.S. gross national product from the industry was $11.7 billion. Excuse me. In the United Kingdom, the total video game market was valued at nearly $4.2 billion, according to, and that's in euros, but according to figures from Yuki and MBC. The largest segments in digital software, 1.2 billion euros, and mobile games, 664 million euros, while sales of consoles dropped to 689 million euros. The following were 2015's highest grossing video games in terms of worldwide revenue, physicals, including physical sales, digital purchases, subscriptions, microtransactions, free-to-play, and pay-to-play across all platforms, including mobile, PC, and console platforms. 3 of the top 10 highest grossing games are published or owned by Tencent, including the top grossing title, League of Legends. So Tencent, I hadn't really heard about them until fairly recently, but looks like they were already starting to become a player here as far as a publisher, right, in the video game industry. And they're a bit of a controversial company for a lot of different reasons, which I'm sure we'll get into in some of the later years. But this is, I mean, as you can see, right, so a lot of these games that they're publishing are just, they're making crazy money, and they're just like these simple games, right? So League of Legends, I don't even really know what League of Legends is. I just know it's some kind of a free-to-play game, like some kind of adventure game, I guess, and all. But I know a lot of people talk about it, though. But it was at number 1 with a revenue of 1,628 million. And so number 2 was Monster Strike with 1,557 million. Another free-to-play game. And then number 3 was Clash of Clans with 1,345,000,000. So all these games that you would see like these random ads on my phone, right, and all, and I'm like, whatever, right, and all. But I didn't know they were making this much money. I know they were popular, but holy crap. And then number 4 was Puzzle of Dungeons. Oh, I'm sorry, Puzzles and Dragons at 1,290,000,000. Number 5 was Crossfire with 1,110,000,000. Number 6 was Dungeon Fighter Online with 1,052,000,000. And then number 7, finally, we get to kind of more of a console game, and that's Call of Duty Black Ops 3 with 1 billion. And then number 8 was World of Warcraft with 814 million. And then Game of War Fire Age at 799 million. And then number 10 was Fallout 4 with 150 million. Okay, but best-selling games. And so it looks like this is kind of more, I guess, just retail, I guess, or digital retail. But let's see. So I'll just go with the United States here. So number 1, and so again, I guess this is not including like each year they kind of change things up a little bit on how they have it formatted here on like the best-selling games and whatnot. So this doesn't really give any figures as far as how much they sold or how much they made. It just ranks them. But at number 1 in the United States was for Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Number 2 was Madden NFL 16. Number 3 was Fallout 4. Number 4 was Star Wars Battlefront. Number 5 was Grand Theft Auto 5. Number 6 was NBA 2K16. Let's see. Number 7 was Minecraft. Number 8 was FIFA 16. Number 9, Mortal Kombat 10. And number 10 was Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. Top rated game. So let's see. Looks like it shows Grand Theft Auto 5. Oh, okay. But that was for the PC version, ranking at 96 on Metacritic and 95.7 on Game Rankings. And then below that was another PC game, Out of the Park Baseball 16 with 91 on Metacritic and 95.25 on Game Rankings. And then next one down was Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, with 95 on Metacritic and 90.38 on Game Rankings. Interesting. As far as for Game of the Year, so this was sort of, as far as from what I'm seeing here, The Witcher 3 and Fallout 4. I remember they were getting a lot of accolades during this time. I would say Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain also, I remember seeing that quite a bit too. And to some extent, Bloodborne. Now, Bloodborne, I mean, you hear it talked about all the time now, right? But Bloodborne, I feel like it was pretty popular at the time. I feel like the conversation around Bloodborne, though, only increased as the years went on. So it's like a game that aged like fine wine as far as in the public eye, because I remember hearing about it back then, and people were like, oh yeah, cool, it's a cool Souls-like game and all, and it got pretty good reviews and all. But it seems like in the years that followed is where I really hear more about it. But I do kind of vaguely recall Bloodborne, I think, was also in talks as far as like Game of the Year and all. But those are going to be some of the more heavy hitters of the year, though, right? I would think, from what I can recall and just kind of from what I'm seeing here. But let's go over some events that happened this year, just in the video game industry overall. So on January 7th, Zombie Studios, the creator of the Spec Ops series, was shut down. January 23rd to the 25th, so the PAX South 2015 held in Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center was held. January 30th, Sega continues reduction of Western businesses and focus on digital. That began in 2012. February 3rd, Sony sold Sony Online Entertainment to Columbus Nova. The company was renamed into Daybreak Game Company. February 3rd, video game critic Joystick was shut down by AOL. February 19th, so Sega Networks, a subsidiary of Sega, acquired Demerge Studios. February 20th, Tri-Ace, the developer of Star Ocean and Valkyrie Profile, was acquired by NetBros Japan. Oh, interesting. Let's see, they make some pretty good RPGs. So February 25th, so the website version of Video Game Critic Computer and Computer Games was merged to Games Radar Plus by Future PLC. March 2nd to the 6th, so the Game Developers Conference of 2015 is held in San Francisco, California, along with the Independent Game Festival, same place also in San Francisco. March 4th, Electronic Arts shuts down the headquarters of Maxis in Emeryville, which has created franchises such as SimCity and Spore. March 6th through the 8th, PAX East 2015 was held at the Boston Convention and Exhibition Center. March 12th to the 14th, EGX Res 2015 held at Tobacco Dock, London. March 17th, so Nintendo Company Ltd. announces their affiliation with Japanese mobile game developer Dina and Nintendo Switch, a new console. Okay, so this is where they start announcing the Nintendo Switch. Oh, okay. See, March 23rd, Raven Software celebrated its 25th anniversary. April 1st, Bandai Namco Games was renamed into Bandai Namco Entertainment. April 15th, 2K Australia, the developers of Borderlands, the pre-sequel, was shut down by Take-Two Interactive. April 17th, Phil Harrison, the worldwide corporate vice president of Microsoft Studios, departed from Microsoft. April 20th, Matthew Armstrong, creator of the Borderlands series, left Gearbox Software. April 27th, so following okay, so here we go. So this is a bit what I was talking about, right? About that PT game. So following the cancellation of Silent Hills, Konami delisted itself from the New York Stock Exchange. So interesting because I think I heard somewhere that at least back in the day, way back in the day, like in the 8-bit days and all, Konami was one of the few companies, at least Japanese companies, that was on the that was on Wall Street, I think, or something to that effect. I don't know if this is when they completely took themselves off, or if they had, or I'm not sure about all that, right? But that's why I don't know. It was just interesting, that little bit that I read there. But see, so April 30th, so services of online were discontinued at the asset was required by Sony Computer Entertainment. May 4th, Sparks Unlimited, the developer of Lost Planet 3 and Call of Duty Finest Hour, was shut down. May 22nd, BioWare celebrated its 20th anniversary. On May 22nd, so the Pac-Man franchise celebrated its 35th anniversary in Japan. Asuka Hari, head of franchise development of Remedy Entertainment, left Remedy. June 3rd, CEO of Remedy Entertainment, Matthias Millimerin, departed from the company for Wargaming. Paul Sands replaced Ru Weerasuriya at Ready at Dawn CEO. Let's see. June 9th, Chris Avellone, co-founder of Obsidian Entertainment, departed from the company. June 11th, Housemarque celebrated its 20th anniversary. Oh, wow, that company's been around for a while then, huh? So they're kind of more known for now, more recently, for like Returnal and the upcoming Sorrows game. But I guess I didn't know they were around for that long. Excuse me. On June 12th, Arc Systems Works purchased the right to develop video games for the Double Dragon, River City Ransom, and Super Dodgeball series from the now defunct Technos. Oh, interesting. And we just talked about their creator of those games that had passed earlier. June 16th through the 18th, E3 2015 was held at the Los Angeles Convention Center. June 16th, Square Enix unveiled a new studio, Tokyo RPG Factory. June 21st, Tale of Tales, the developer of Sunset, was closed down. June 24th, People Can Fly, formerly Epic Games Poland, was split from Epic Games. It became an independent studio and acquired the Bulletstorm IP. So Bulletstorm, that was that first-person shooter we talked about, I think, a few years ago, or a few episodes back. June 29th, Disney Infinity, publisher of Disney Interactive, was merged into Disney Consumer Products, the developer of Playmation, to form a new division called Disney Consumer Products and Interactive Media. June 30th, Club Nintendo was discontinued in North America. July 4th through the 5th, Minecon was held at the EXL London Exhibition and Conference Center. Okay, so here we go. So we kind of touched base a bit about this last episode, right? But here we go. So July 11th, Satoru Iwata, president and CEO of Nintendo, died at the age of 55. So he was fairly young. But like I said, I was. This was sort of a dark period for me with Nintendo that I didn't really follow a lot of. I wasn't really too involved with the Wii U or the 3DS, so I don't know a whole lot of the stretch here. But it seemed like during the stretch, this Satoru Iwata was pretty well beloved, as I always kept hearing things about him, and even people talk pretty highly of him. So I'm sure he's missed a lot for as far as for what he was doing with Nintendo there. But July 13th, Electronic Arts formed new studio called EA Motive. The studio is led by former Ubisoft director Jade Raymond. July 19th, or I'm sorry, 17th to the 19th, so it's a CGC 2015 to be held at the Embassy Suites Frisco Hotel and Convention Center. July 22nd, John Smedley stepped down as Daybreak Game Company's president and CEO. July 23rd to the 26th, QuakeCon 2015 to be held in Dallas, Texas. July 27th, China's government fully lifts the ban on the sales of video game consoles within the country. Interesting. So I'm wondering if... so China right now is developing a lot of stuff, right? I don't know to the full extent of all, I guess... Because I know that they were pretty strict as far as with video game sales there and all. I'm wondering if after this happened is where... there was like a big rise in developers and all over there and publishers that ended up starting to create the games that we're starting to see a lot of now, right? Everything from like Black Myth Wukong to that Marvel Rivals game and that upcoming Tides of Annihilation game that looks amazing. That's actually one game. That's actually one new IP that I'm really looking forward to, at least from what I've seen and all. That game looks outstanding. But I'm wondering if this is kind of where we just saw that huge increase there. Because I don't know, all of a sudden we're just getting a bunch of stuff from there. And assuming that it takes a while to make these games and all, right? I wonder if this is sort of the start of that. But that's interesting. But let's see, July 27th, so Razer Inc. acquired all the software assets of Ouya, that little console we talked about a little while back. July 29th, Windows 10 was released. July 29th, which really, that Windows 10 has been around for that long. Little things about Windows 11 that I can't stand, but I'm also not. I mean, I use obviously PC for work and all, but I'm just kind of like very much in a bubble with what I use it for work purposes and all. But I don't really use a computer that much anymore. But a little bit that I've messed around with Windows 11, I'm like, it's so annoying. But maybe it's just one of those things I just need to get used to it. July 29th, Jaeger Development filed for insolvency for the production division of Jaeger Productions GmbH. August 5th to the 9th, Gamescom 2015 was held in Cologne, Germany. August 21st, Remedy Entertainment celebrated its 20th anniversary. August 26th, Google released the YouTube gaming app. August 28th to the 31st, PAX Prime to be held in Seattle, Washington. September 2nd, 2015, GameStop Expo is held at the Venetian Las Vegas Resort. Would have been cool to go to. September 13th, the Super Mario series celebrated its 30th anniversary in Japan. Holy shit, we're talking about the 40th anniversary here soon this year. Wow, time flies. September 14th, Tatsumi Kimishima is appointed president of Nintendo after the death of Satoru Iwata in July 2015. Nintendo EAD and Nintendo SPD was merged, forming Nintendo Entertainment Planning and Development. September 15th, Sony announced that Project Morpheus was renamed into PlayStation VR. Never seemed to really been able to take off though, VR just in general. Well, the MetaQuest seems to be doing okay. Like I like the Quest 2. I kind of want to get into it a little bit more, but like the other day, my daughter's really got into this I Am Cat game. She plays it a lot on the tablet, and she just loves it. And so she wanted me to check it out on VR. So it was for fairly cheap there one day. I was like, all right, I'll check it out on VR. So I bought it, but I was like, she's a little too young for me to, get her to play on VR. But I was like, I'll test it out for her. And then I cast it onto the TV so she can see what I was playing. I gotta say, after about like 3 or 4 minutes of playing that, I'm like, I feel like I'm gonna puke. So that's what for some things I'm not super sensitive when it comes to VR, but other things, basically, like if I'm moving in a free, open 3D environment, that after a while I'm like, oh, okay, I do start getting kind of queasy after a few minutes, and that's the thing about it, right? And all, because otherwise I wouldn't mind getting into it a little bit more. It's just it does kind of make me sick after a bit, but anyways. Let's continue on here. So September 17th to the 20th. So Tokyo Game Show 2015 at the is held at the Makihori Messe in Tokyo. September 24th, Maxis was reassigned to the EA mobile division of Electronic Arts. September 24th through the 27th, EGX 2015 at the NEC in Birmingham, UK is held. September 30th, Club Nintendo was discontinued in Europe and Japan. Jeez, there's a whole lot of stuff that happened this year. September 30th, Twisted Pixel Games was separated from Microsoft Studios and became an independent studio again. October 2nd, Microsoft purchased Havoc from Intel. October 2nd through the 4th, EGS was held at Centro Banamex in Mexico City. October 3rd, FireAxis was held by FireAxis Games at the Baltimore Convention Center in Maryland. October 6th, Ubisoft acquired the Crew developer Ivory Tower. And October 8th through the 12th, Brazil Game Show 2015. It's held at the Expo Center Norte, Sao Paulo, Brazil. October 11th through the 13th, First Look Festival 2015 at Jarbers Utrecht in Utrecht, Netherlands. October 13th, Ubisoft acquired Longtail Studios and renamed it to Ubisoft Halifax. October 28th, Paris Games Week in Paris, France is held. October 29th, Paradox Interactive purchased White Wolf Publishing and all its assets, including World of Darkness, The Vampire Masquerade, and CCP Games. November 2nd, Activision Blizzard acquired Candy Crush Saga developer Keen for $5.9 billion. November 4th, Konami shuttered its Los Angeles division. This is where Konami is starting to... So, yeah, because it was around this time that Konami started just hiding from the video game industry. They're making a bit of a comeback, which is cool, but it seemed like, I guess I'm kind of interested. Maybe I'm going to come back to this here because I'm kind of interested what exactly happened with Konami. I don't know the full extent of it. I know they had a fallout with Hideo Kojima, because then after that, it seemed like they just sort of fell off the map, outside of them just doing like their pachinko machines in Japan. But anyways, let's see. So BlizzCon 2015 at the Anaheim Convention Center in Anaheim, California is held. November 6th, Activision Blizzard established a new TV and film studio, Activision Blizzard Studios. November 6th, 2K China closed by Take-Two Interactive. Their next game, Borderlands Online, was canceled. November 6th, NC Soft launched a new mobile division named Iron Tiger. November 12th through the 15th, G-Star 2015 and Bexco Busan, South Korea is held. December 3rd, the Game Awards 2015 is held in Los Angeles, California. What was the game of the year this year? 2015, I think it was The Witcher 3. Yeah. Let's see. December 5th through the 6th, the PlayStation Experience 2015 is held in San Francisco, California. December 7th, Flying Wild Hog opened a new studios in Krakow, Poland. December 9th, a new development studio was established by Microsoft Game Studios in Montreal. December 10th, so Electronic Arts established a competitive gaming division, a new division headed by Peter Moore, which focuses on esports. December 11th through the 13th, GamerX held at the San Jose Marriott Convention Center in San Jose, California. December 12th, Gearbox Studios opened a new studio in Quebec. December 16th, Crystal Dynamics studio head Daryl Gallagher left the company. Okay, and then December 16th, Kojima Productions was reestablished as an independent studio headed by Hideo Kojima. Okay, so yeah, it was all happening within this year, right? This whole split from Konami. But let's see, but notable deaths. So January 25th, 2015, Colin Wyckoff, age 20, Gary's Mod YouTuber known as online as Kitty0706. He passed. Hey, he was young. February 1st to the 2015, Monty Oum, 33, animator for Midway Games and Afro Samurai. He passed. Let's see, Afro Samurai, I remember that game. So it's based off of an anime with Samuel L. Jackson doing the voice of the main character, and then I think also for the game. But it was an interesting little game for the PlayStation 3, a little bit that I played of it. But June 7th, 2015, we lost also the great legendary Christopher Lee. He was 93, so voice actor best known for the character Saruman in the Lord of the Rings film franchise and its video game tie-ins. So we talked about this one already. July 11th, 2015, Satoru Iwata, 55, the fourth president and chief executive officer of Nintendo Past. And then on July 31st, 2015, Roddy Piper, 61, pro wrestler and actor, appeared in Adobo's Big Adventure, Saints Row 4, and numerous wrestling games, including WWE 2K. So it's interesting. So I was just watching a documentary just last night, actually. So Rod Piper, I think was his name, his wrestling name and all. And so he was in this movie called They Live back in the 80s. And this movie has become more relevant just because how it seems to really mirror certain elements of what's going on in society nowadays. So in the movie, there's like these aliens that have infested themselves among society, and so he'll put on these glasses, and then he can spot them as any human that's human. They'll look like humans, right? Because it gives them like this black and white filter almost. But anyone that's an alien, they'll have like this weird, creepy, almost like skull-like face, but like with I don't know, they look weird. And then also like certain signs around or advertisements and all will show what they're really trying to say. And so it's definitely an interesting movie to watch for like some of the I guess what's the word I want to use, the way it can sort of like a political commentary almost, right, on what it's talking about just life and what life is. Probably things that were, whoever the director and the writer of this movie was back then, what they were seeing, but then how it's really mirroring things nowadays, right? Ultimately the movie's kind of cheesy 80s action, but it's just interesting how the story got it kind of right to what society would become. And of course it also has a one-liner on there that has become very popular, which was also used in Duke Nukem games, which is I'm paraphrasing, but I'm here to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of gum. Well, it comes from that movie right there. So anyways, if you get a chance, check out at least a trailer for it. So it's called They Live and it stars Roddy Piper in it. And then if you get a chance to watch the full movie, right, definitely, again, it's a bit cheesy, but it's kind of frightening also how much it mirrors our society nowadays, or at least how it's making a commentary on it anyways. But anyways, so we have hardware releases. So these systems that came out this year. So probably the biggest one was the new Nintendo 3DS and new Nintendo 3DS XL. My understanding of this is pretty much it's a new Nintendo 3, it's a Nintendo 3DS just with slightly more power. I think that it's not like it give it a lot of more power, just a little bit more, but there were some games though that could only run on this system. I think probably the biggest example of that would be the Xenoblade Chronicles, that they fit that game somehow on the 3DS, which is pretty amazing. But anyways, the new 3DS came out in Europe on January 6th in Europe, and then February 13th the 3DS XL in North America and in Europe. Let's see, and then April 29th we got the Razer Forge TV, and then in May 28th the Nvidia Shield TV. I think this is the one. Yeah, okay, this is the one that I got, and I remember I mainly used it for it's basically like an Android TV based little box that you can stream things on, right? But you can also play Android games on there, and this is some years ago, so it was around COVID where I really started getting again into emulation, because I had emulated games before, but just up until like the 16-bit days or era. And so when I was finding out about the Nvidia Shield, and it was during COVID, so I was just we just weren't able to do a whole lot, right? So I kind of went into the rabbit hole of emulation even more. And now that I was finding out, because this is when I started, it had already been able to be done before, but I wasn't keeping up with the emulation scene until around 2020. And so I was finding out that, wait a minute, you can emulate games now up until like the PlayStation, the Dreamcast, and even the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube if you have a powerful enough system. And I was like, wait, what? I did not know about this. So then because again, I got into emulation like in the mid 2000s or so, right? But again, just up until like the Super Nintendo. So this really had my interest, so it sort of became like a hobby of mine during COVID. that I got into, and it was the NVIDIA Shield that I bought because I kept seeing videos on it that it's something that can emulate games fairly well up until like the Dreamcast, and so I got that. I loaded up with ROMs and all, and so that was a pretty cool experience because you can also get this pretty good controller for it as well too. And so for a little bit there, that was my system that I was using right to emulate things, and then eventually I went down the emulation rabbit hole, and now I'm have a bunch of stuff now, right, where I can emulate things on. But this is sort of the start of it when I got into emulation again. But anyways, it came out this year in May 28th. Looks like November 27th, we got the Samsung Gear VR. And then November 10th, we got the Steam Machine. What? It came out all the way back then, and we're still waiting for it now. So my understanding of the Steam Machine, it was a system that came out from Steam, but it wasn't very. Ultimately, it didn't really sell that well. Let's see. I'm just going to kind of go over some quick information here. Let's see. Yeah, it even had its own controller. Okay, here we go. So I'm just going to read this here. So basically the reception of this system. So by June 2016, 7 months after the official release, fewer than 500,000 units have been sold. In response to the sales figures, Ars Technica described the unit as dead on arrival. Many vendors discontinued selling Steam machines by the end of 2016. However, as of 2017, some were still offering them for sale alongside configurations that could be installed with Steam OS. So yeah. I mean, they're trying to do it again, right? But we'll see what comes of all that there, here if they ever do end up releasing it. But that's kind of more modern gaming stuff. But alrighty, let's see. Let's talk about a bit about Konami here. Let me see if I can find something that regarding Konami and Kojima and all. So let's start here. Kojima Productions. Alright, so Kojima Productions is a Japanese video game development and film production studio founded in 2015 by Hideo Kojima, creator of the Metal Gear franchise. It is the spiritual successor to a production team inside Konami, also known as Kojima Productions, originally founded in 2005. The independent Kojima Productions has slightly altered Japanese name and is based in Shinagawa, Tokyo. The studio partnered with partner Sony Interactive Entertainment to develop and release their first game, Death Stranding. Okay, so I want to kind of know more about the history, though. Okay, here we go. So, the original Kojima Productions was formed as a subsidiary of Konami in April 2005. After the merger of several subsidiaries, including Kojima's group at Konami Computer Entertainment Japan, the name of the team followed Konami's naming style used between 2004 and 2015. Other production teams include Pawapuro Production, Benami Production, Virtual Kiss Production, and Love Plus Production. The team had around 100 employees, but grew to over 200 for Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots. Kojima said the merger relieved him of business management and administrative burdens as he had as Konami's vice president, and that as head of Kojima Productions, he could focus on making games. While having a position on the Konami board, Kojima wanted to persuade the staff and invest the company in his idea, as well as developing Metal Gear titles. Kojima Productions developed the Fox engine. In March 2013, the company established Kojima Productions Los Angeles, the secondary studio in Playa Vista, Los Angeles. However, the studio was shut down as part of Konami's plan to restructure the company in 2015. On March 16, 2015, Konami announced that it had restructured the game development operations to change the production structure to a headquarters-controlled system. In order to establish a steadfast operating base capable of responding to the rapid market changes that surround our digital entertainment business. The Kojima Productions branding was quietly removed from the company websites and buildings. A few days later, anonymous Konami employees stated that Kojima and the studio's senior staff had planned to leave Konami in December 2015, following the conclusion of their contracts and the release of Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Konami denied that Kojima was leaving the company and stated that he would still be involved with the company and the Metal Gear franchise. Kojima confirmed that he was still 100% involved in The Phantom Pain and was determined to make it the greatest game he could. In December 2015, the production team was nominated for Developer of the Year at the Game Awards of 2015, but lost to CD Projekt Red. Kojima was reportedly blocked from attending the event by Konami's lawyers, requiring Big Boss's actor Kiefer Sutherland to accept the awards of The Phantom Pain on his behalf. So let's see, on December 16th, 2015, in a joint announcement with Sony Computer Entertainment, Kojima announced that he would start an independent studio, also named Kojima Productions, alongside Yoji Shinkawa and Kenichiro Imazumi. The studio announced that it would develop a new franchise for PlayStation 4. Kojima stated that he will be taking a new challenge by establishing, so he said, quote, "Will be taking on a new challenge by establishing my own independent studio, and I am thrilled to be able to embark on this journey with PlayStation, who I have continued to work with all these past years," end quote. Excuse me. In contrast to most Japanese development studios, which he likened to armies due to strict hierarchy and the lack of respect given to his employees, Kojima sought to establish an intimate kind of studio that feels like it's family. Kojima visited Media Molecule and cited it as an inspiration. So Media Molecule, I believe they're the company behind the Little Big Planet games. He was impressed by its work culture, particularly its number of female employees and relaxed atmosphere. He set a limit of 100 employees for the studio, similar to Media Molecule. In 2016, he opened a small division in Amsterdam near Guerrilla Games, who developed the Decima game engine that Kojima is using. So, okay, there's more to it, but that goes into later year stuff, so I'll leave it there. But yeah, so looks like so they had a bit. There was I'm sure there's a lot more in there, right? I'm just kind of reading the bullet points here. What happened between the split between Konami and Hideo Kojima? But yeah, I mean, ultimately, it looks like he was on his way out, but then Konami basically didn't want him to, and because of that friction, he wasn't even invited to the Game Awards that year. So I remember the big old controversy back then. But yeah, interesting. And so then after that, I mean, Konami really, they weren't really doing much until more recently, right? So it's good to have him back, but as far as what's going to happen with the Metal Gear, I mean, I'm glad we're getting like these collections and remasters and all, which is cool. But as far as like a new Metal Gear game, I mean, you need Kojima. I can't see that series continuing on without him. I mean, it's even if he was just to do like a consultant on it, I still don't think that'd be enough because those games are very tied to him. But anyways, we'll see what comes of all that there. But let's get into some games. Or actually, one thing I did want to talk about too also is a reveal that happened during it was either E3. Here, I'll look it up here while I'm talking. But I think it was during E3 or so. But it happened this year at one of these, all those numerous game conventions that I mentioned. But it was the reveal of a highly anticipated game. So I believe it was last year, in 2014 anyways, where maybe it was this year, but we got Final Fantasy VII that came out on the PlayStation 4. I don't know if it came out on the Xbox One at the same time too also, right? But I know for sure we got it on the PlayStation 4. And it was, I remember at the time there was some speculation that what if it came out, or what if were they working on something else on Final Fantasy, right? But the only thing we knew though was just nope, it's just Final Fantasy VII coming out on the PlayStation 4, which is great. Having that game available on more consoles was certainly not a bad thing. But let's see. Okay, here we go. So, according to Skynet here, Final Fantasy VII Remake was officially announced on June 15th of 2015. Okay, so it was during Sony's press conference at E3 2015. After years of rumors and fan demand, the announcement trailer featuring iconic scenes of Cloud, Strife, and Midgar was revealed, confirming that a full remake was in development. So basically it was during that press conference there that we got Final Fantasy VII reveal, and it's just a quick little reveal where there's someone talking in the background, which now I believe it's someone from the Gi from when you're in Cosmo Canyon. I believe so anyways. But then it shows like Midgar, right? At first you don't know what it is, right? You're like, what is this? What's going on? And then eventually it shows Barrett's hand, I believe, like his gun hand, and then Cloud with his Buster Sword in his back, and they're just kind of walking through a crowd in Midgar, and then that's it, right? And everyone was like, and it looks like with outstanding graphics, right? And all like, like we're seeing now, modern graphics, and everyone was just losing their shit. It's like, oh my God, Final Fantasy VII is getting a remake. I remember when I first saw that, I was like, stop. Like, stop. This can't be happening. And so definitely got very excited for that. And ultimately, it would be a bit of a journey as far as the development of that game. And I'll see if I can touch base on that a bit as the years, as the later years go on. I'll plan to have a little bit of a Final Fantasy VII special. I try to keep this as just video game general news overall, right? As far as like the video game history, and I don't know, but I have such a bias to this game. I'm going to kind of gush about that game when I, as I'm talking more about it, right, in its development and release and all that. But basically, yeah, I just remember I just lost my shit when I saw that. I was so excited about it, but we didn't really know much about it as far as when it was coming out, what form it would take, what is going on, right, until later years, right? And that's a whole story in itself. But yeah, it was very exciting at the prospect that we were getting a Final Fantasy VII remake, which is obviously still ongoing to this day, right? We're still waiting for part 3. We didn't know that at the time, though, right? If it was going to be split into 3 parts, one game, or what? Because immediately that was my first thought. I was like, okay, we're getting the Final Fantasy VII remake with these styles of graphics. I was like, how long is this game going to be, right? And because Tetsuya Nomura and Square's, or games that he's attached to with Square Enix, they tend to take a long time to come out. That was a concern immediately right there, right? But either way, though, right, it was very exciting, and we're still in that journey to this day, right? We're still waiting for the announcement of part 3. But anyways, this is when the first one got announced this year, and it was pretty exciting at that time. Also, Shenmue 3, I don't know if it was on this press conference that it got announced. I think it was, but Shenmue 3 was also announced too, which is pretty cool. And that game, I believe, came out like in 2019 or so. But the announcement was pretty cool. The game itself it's all right. But let's get into the games here, though. So have some games to discuss. And so starting with handhelds, I only got one game here, and that's on the 3DS for The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask in 3D. And so this was a kind of like a remaster / slightly remake of the original Majora's Mask game. So Grezzo, who did the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time remaster / remake on the 3DS, did this one also. And so kind of the same thing, right? It bumped up the graphical quality, some quality of life improvements, but more or less the same game. I've heard some different takes on this, that some people prefer this one because of the quality of life improvement and the graphical improvements, but some people feel that the Nintendo 64 style added a certain atmosphere to this game, because this game, from what I've seen and heard, is that it is a bit of a darker game, right, as far as its tone, story, and all. I've never really played this game, so I don't know a whole lot about it. It's one that I'm definitely interested in playing, but that's my understanding of it. So I don't know, which is I wonder what the best one is to play, or which one is considered a better version. I kind of getting the itching now to play this game. I kind of been wanting to get into a Zelda game that I haven't played before, just to kind of prep for the supposed Legend of Zelda remake that we'll be getting sometime later this year. So maybe this will be the one. I don't know. We'll see. But let's get into multi-platform games. So this is we had quite a bit of stuff this year that came out for multi-platform. I played some of these, a lot I didn't though, so I'm going to be a bit limited on what I can say on some of these here. But we had Undertale, which is an indie kind of RPG game. I believe it was like developed by one person, if I recall right. I know this game is hugely popular. I just don't know a whole lot about it, and I haven't tried it yet. But it seems like something I can get into. So this is another game that I have it, and I just need to try to get into it at some point. It's like it's got this the art style to it looks like a combination of like Earthbound on the Super Nintendo, but then kind of its own weird wacky thing too. Every time I see like boss fights on this, or just some certain areas, I'm like, what the hell is going on in this game? It has my attention. I'm curious about it. Supposedly it's really funny. It's a good story, but when you look at it, you're like, what's so special about this game? I've yet to play it though, like I said, right? And so definitely has my interest. This is one of those games where I've heard way too many good things about, that it's like, okay, I got to try it at some point, even if it's not something that would normally fall on my radar. So I don't know. Maybe one of these days I'll give it a shot there. Well, we also had Dead or Alive 5 last round. So another Dead or Alive game. We're up to part 5 now, and they're fun games. Yeah, I mean, they're fun games. I like the Dead or Alive 5 games. I mean, I know they're popular for the obvious reasons, but it's but the actual fighting engine, though, it's actually not that bad in this, and I do love the way how they streamline on how you can do counters. When you can pull one off, it's very exhilarating, and even though that as the later releases has gone on, the window that you have to activate these counters, it's very small now, right? And also it makes them a lot more challenging than say like some of the older entries, but still a fun fighting game though. We also had Rocket League, and this game I remember I've only played it once, and it was funny because the way we played it was at the time. I remember talking to my brother online through the PlayStation 4, and we're just kind of BSing through there, and then we saw that game had just got released. I think if I recall right, I think it was a free game on the PlayStation Plus. So as we're talking, it was like, hey, look, this Rocket League game came out. Let's check it out, right? As we're BSing, and so we're just kind of talking right along just about whatever we were catching up on life, and then we started playing this game. We're like, oh shit, actually, because we were just kind of casually playing it, but then after like a few minutes, we're like, this is actually kind of fun. So basically, the concept is very weird, where you're like these cars in a sort of like a soccer arena, and you have this huge soccer ball that you're trying to get into the goal. So basically, like soccer, right? But you're using cars, though, right? So a very interesting premise. It's actually pretty fun, and we just played it that one time very casually, right? And we're like, oh, okay, this is pretty fun, right? And we never really thought much of it. I didn't know this game was going to blow up so much, though, right? Because I think that they when the game came out, they put it on there for free, I guess, to get people kind of like to come into the game, and then eventually that really helped though to expand its audience, and it became a really huge game afterwards. So because I remember in the years that followed, I was like, oh, that silly little game that we played, that one time, it actually, ended up becoming a huge game. So anyways, I thought that was interesting there. But this is when this game came out. And then we also had a Life is Strange. So we're starting to get these games, right, that are being released in episodes. So, where you would get episode 1, episode 2. So like the Telltale games. So like The Walking Dead we've talked about before. And also that Wolf Among Us. Well, this is another one in that similar style there. Only this one was being published by Square Enix. And I don't know much of the premise on this one. It just kind of seems like you're like a teenager, but there's like certain supernatural things happening in it. It's had my interest. I don't know much about it though. So yeah, I can't say too much more on it other than that. From what it seems like, it definitely seems it has its fans, right? So maybe one day I'll try to check this game out. We had also Resident Evil Revelations 2. So this is a sequel to the Resident Evil Revelations that came out first on the 3DS and then later got released on consoles. But this is another game too, also that I believe was released in episodes too, which was new to the Resident Evil series. And I've heard some decent things about this game here. I don't know, honestly, I don't know a whole lot about this one. I just know that you control Claire Redfield in it. She's a character that outside of like Resident Evil 2 and then Resident Evil Code Veronica, she never really got a whole lot of exposure, but she's one of the main characters in this one here. So now that I'm caught up on all the mainline Resident Evil games, I feel like I need to go back to some of these sub games here. So, and Resident Evil Revelations is on the top of my list, and maybe after I beat that one, maybe I'll go back to this one here. But we also got Mortal Kombat 10. Excuse me. And so continuing on from the style that was done in the previous Mortal Kombat game, I've only messed around with this one a little bit, and seems cool. It's more Mortal Kombat. Seems pretty cool. And so maybe this would be another one I should really give more of a go. It has a story mode in it as well too, which is always appreciated in a fighting game like this for single players also. And I believe it has a lot of if I recall, it has like a lot of cool like extra characters you can unlock, like Jason, I believe, and Freddy Krueger maybe. I forgot, but yeah, I mean the Mortal Kombat games going forward from here, right, or even in the previous one and going forward, they had a lot of like cool like extra characters you can get. But yeah, Mortal Kombat, pretty cool game from what I've played, and I don't hear much talked about this one, but a little bit that I have played of it, it definitely seemed fun though. Then we had Transformers Devastation, and so I've only played a bit of this game here. It's when I played it, it seems a little difficult to control, but it's developed by Platinum Games, and the look of this game is absolutely amazing. So it's done in this cell shaded style, runs really smooth, really colorful graphics, and it basically so like the previous Transformers games that I talked about, so the War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron, those are excellent games. The art style of the game, though, it's a little bit more gritty, a little bit more realistic, kind of a not quite to like what the Michael Bay movies were doing, but kind of in that direction. Where this one here, the art style is basically it's what they were doing back in the 80s cartoons. So definitely brings out the nostalgia with this one here. And another game though that came out was Dying Light. And so this game, I remember a friend of mine that I was working with. He was really hyping this game up for me at the time, but just never actually took his word to play it. But it's a first-person game. It's zombies, and you're you're like parkouring over this kind of like a city. It almost seems like it's a cross between like Resident Evil meets that Mirror's Edge I talked about right some years ago, where it's like a parkour first-person game. In the later years, I did try it one time. I played about an hour of it or so, and it definitely seems interesting. The concept of this game I really like, and it seems like something I could really get into. I just haven't gotten around to playing it, so sorry, Justin. At some point, I promise, dude, I'll play this game. I just remember he was hyping it up to me a lot back in the day, and just haven't gotten around to it. But I do have it downloaded on my Xbox, though, so one of these days I'll get in there and try to play this game. But we also had Fallout 4. And this game I remember being pretty excited to play. So I loved and beat Fallout 3. Really got into that game. I absolutely loved it. Never got into New Vegas, though, and it wasn't for not wanting to. I just, again, like I've mentioned before, right, I started falling behind on a lot of games, right, that were starting to come out. But Fallout 4, I was pretty excited about, and so I remember buying it. I think I even made a post on social media like, hey, look, I got Fallout 4, for anybody that, gives a shit. I don't really know anybody that like in my real life and all that's like into video games and all, but that was just my excitement level, right, and all for wanting to play it. And so so I got the game and I played it for a bit. I started getting into it, but something about it though that eventually I never really fully got into it the way I did with Fallout 3. I don't remember what it was exactly, but there was just something about it that I'm like, I don't know. It's like it's not a bad game. It's just not, I don't know. It just wasn't hooking me quite as much. But I mean, it seems like it's a pretty cool game. It seems like it's kind of a lot like Fallout 3 in many ways. Only now there's like you can create like buildings and the community in it, and I think, but maybe that was part of the reason why it threw me off. I can't recall why. I just remember I was playing it. I'm like, I was like, I think it was just one of those. I didn't hate it, but I was like, I'll come back to it. And then, 11 years later, I still haven't gone back to it. But I don't know. Maybe at some point I'll pick it up again. But if I were to get into a Fallout game, it'd probably be New Vegas, because that is one that I do want to get into at some point. But we had an Assassin's Creed game also, as these were still pretty much coming out annually up to this point here. So Assassin's Creed Syndicate. I've only played a little bit about this game just to check it out, and it's this one takes place in London during kind of like the industrial age, and this one, if I recall right, you can pick between two characters, or you jump between two characters, so male and female, or I think they're like brothers and sisters or something like that. And I mean, it seemed cool. It seemed more along the lines of like the Assassin's Creed games that have been up to this point. Eventually, Assassin's Creed got a bit of a makeover, so I think that's why I'm kind of confusing this one, but no, this is still where they were kind of sort of playing the same style, right? You're doing parkour, the actual combat in it and the way you get around the area and all was still mostly the same. And so it seems like it's pretty cool and all, but I think up to this point, if I recall, the series was starting to get a little stale because we've been getting them pretty much annually up to this point. And so I want to say that I think this is the last one before they did a bit of an overhaul. But from what I've played of it, from what I've seen of it, it's not bad. It seems like it's a decent game. It's just that it, like I said, right, and I was starting to get like, okay, we're kind of done with this series unless they change it up, which they did, but this is the last one of this style here that came out, at least for a while. But then just like another annual release, so we also got Call of Duty Black Ops 3. And this one, I don't know much about it. I think I tried it at one point, but this is where I started falling off of the Call of Duty series, because I remember playing Advanced Warfare from last year, but this one I remember. I don't know if I played this one. I don't know much about it other than that it's called Black Ops 3. But I want to say I think this one is like kind of set in the future. I think I'm not quite sure. But I'm sure for people that were into online gaming and all that, this was probably a pretty popular game. Okay, but now we're going to get into some games, though, that I really did get into, though, during this stretch here. And so these were some of my favorite games of this year. And so starting off with Batman Arkham Knight. And so this game came out on the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. And I will say also that I don't know if it came out this year, but it came out on the PC. And just a heads up at the time, just because it's, you know, something that was kind of controversial at the time, it had a really busted launch on PC. It was something, I don't know the full specifics of it, but something about that it just ran poorly, was poorly optimized, and just wasn't a good overall experience. I think in the years that followed, they eventually fixed it, but it was not a good port, though, on the PC, which, you know, kind of sucked, right, for PC-only players, that they had this really messed up, game when it first came out on them. Again, I don't know if it came out this year there or not. But on consoles, though, so let's see, I played this on the PlayStation 4, but pretty much the same on the Xbox One. It's a very nice looking game. This is still one of the better looking games out there. I mean, what they did was, you know, because now in Gotham Knight, so, you know, and again, being a huge fan of the previous Batman Arkham games, I'm a huge Batman fan, right? My favorite superhero of all time. And so I was obviously pretty excited about this one. And then now you get to ride the Batmobile. It's like, what? You know? And so, yeah, I mean, the game is, you know, it looks excellent. The city looks excellent because now you're in Gotham City. Obviously, you're not exploring all of Gotham City, but you're exploring a good chunk of it. And I mean, the graphics look outstanding. The fighting combat is really excellent with some new moves, and just overall, right? It looked incredible. Like there's so much about this game that I absolutely love. Right? It just feels just more expanded on from what the previous games were doing. However, though, there's a few things, though, that hold it back that ultimately it makes it actually one of my least favorite Batman Arkham games. And it's not a bad game by no means, right? It's just that the implementation of the Batmobile, I feel, was, I don't know, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. Driving around in the Batmobile is pretty cool. But fighting those tank-like things gets pretty monotonous after a while. There's some puzzles that you can do with the Batmobile that are kind of clever, I guess, but kind of annoying too. And so I just remember that I feel like the how they implemented the Batmobile itself, like the Batmobile itself is pretty cool. Like when you first get into the Batmobile, I thought that was awesome, right? You know, you kind of towards the beginning of the game, you know, you're trying to help out this one. I think he's like a police officer that's being surrounded by a bunch of thugs. You beat up the thugs, and then they start. And then you get into your Batmobile afterwards, and that whole scene right there I thought was pretty badass. But afterwards, you fight these tanks, and I remember during the last stretch of the game, I was like, okay, this is getting kind of annoying, right? It was annoying me. So I felt that the pacing of that, or the implementation of that, threw the pacing off of the game. So that's one criticism that I have of the game there. And the other one too also was the story, where there's a lot of elements about the story that I like, but then there's other things too also where I was like a bit like let down by it. I mean, I do like the overall conclusion of it. There's just a lot of things in the middle, though, that was a bit kind of like, you know. But again, by no means it's not a bad game. I would still probably rate the game like, I don't know, like maybe an 8.5 or maybe even almost close to a 9 out of 10. It's just that because I hold the other games to such high regard, even Batman Arkham Origins, I prefer that one over this one. Those games to me are just really amazing, that this one was a slightly bit of a letdown. And then I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to get too much more into the story. But, I mean, technically, the game looks amazing. I really wish this would get a patch on consoles for it to run at 60 frames per second. Because if it did, it would still be one of the more incredible-looking games of the year. Of all time, actually. I truly feel that the art direction in this game and everything just looks really outstanding. And so we're getting to the point now also, because I just said that games, like the graphics and all, they got a little bit better than here. I mean, there's still some games in the later years, right, that look really incredible, but we're kind of starting to reach that point where we sort of hit a ceiling as far as like how good games can look. Because like I said, you give me Batman Arkham Knight running at 60 frames per second, and otherwise pretty much maybe, bump up the resolution and all, right, but other than that, keep everything the same, you have one of the better looking games out there. And this is a game from 11 years ago, right? So we're starting to reach that point where graphics didn't get too much better than from what we got here. I mean, there's they did get a little bit better, right, but not to this drastic change though, right, as we were seeing in previous generations. So because the graphics the stuff that was starting to come out now was just really awesome, right? I mean, I was like, holy crap, this stuff looks amazing. Because like to the next game, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. So this game also running on the Fox engine that they were using and running at a smooth 60 frames per second. And so now this is the actual full game, right, from what we talked about last year. And I really love this game. It was a different Metal Gear experience where previous Metal Gear games have been so focused on its story, right? And with some cool gameplay, but very story heavy. This one is kind of the opposite. Now, this one was still done by Hideo Kojima, but this one is very much more gameplay with limited story elements to it. A lot of the story elements to this game that if you really want to get into it, is that there's like these cassette tapes that you can listen to. They kind of flesh out the overall story more, but they're completely optional, so you don't have to listen to them. And honestly, I didn't really listen to a whole lot of them because my main focus was playing this game. Usually I play a Metal Gear Solid game because, yeah, sure, I love the gameplay, but at the same time, I want this crazy story. In this one, I was just so hooked on the gameplay of it. I just loved exploring this open world. And what makes this game so great for me is how you can sort of like create your own story, right? Like there's so much fun in, you select the mission, you're on your helicopter, you're listening to a song, right? Where I think the one that it defaults to is like the David Bowie's The Man Who Sold the World. But then you can, as you get cassette tapes later on, you can choose for what your music is playing as you're landing in your helicopter, which is kind of cool. Like I think they have that one classical song, Flight of the Valkyrie, I think. So anyways, it's cool how you can customize that. And then you land in an area, and then you're like, I remember there's so many fun moments that I remember this one time, like I think the mission was just to rescue some hostage. I forgot who it was. And that's the thing, the story doesn't matter, right? But you go into this enemy base, and I remember I was doing really well sneaking around, but then towards the end I got caught, but I was able to save this hostage, and I had him on my back. I was able to steal a Jeep and then ride it out to this safe area where I was calling my helicopter as I'm driving there, right, so I can land on this area. And then but the enemy was still behind me, was able to get into the hostage into the helicopter, get him on my back, or I'm sorry, get him in the helicopter, get into the helicopter myself, as the helicopter's shooting back, as the enemy shooting at us, and then eventually we fly away. And that was just awesome. And there's so many moments like that, right? Like unscripted moments that just makes this game an absolute blast to play. When it comes to straightly gameplay, definitely my favorite stealth game out there. It is so much fun to play. The amount of like tools it gives you to to complete your objective in where it's sort of like you're kind of thinking on the fly, right, of how you're gonna do this is so much fun. Because like, for example, you can take out like the radio towers, right, so the communication is more limited. You can blow up certain like vehicles and all, right, so they can't use them. So many cool things, right, that you can do in this game, right, and all that makes it such a blast to play through. After a while, though, it did start getting a bit monotonous, though, I will say, though, right? Because after so much, because the game is pretty long, and there was certain stretches of it that I'm like, okay, let's just kind of wrap up this game, right? Because it's pretty long, and then, like I said, the story is pretty lackluster. It starts off pretty cool. Like, I do enjoy the first opening cinema area to it, where I'll say like the first, I don't know, hour to this game, it's pretty awesome because it picks up right where the Ground Zeroes left off. And then when you get out in the open world, right, the story really goes down, right, because it sets up like this interesting setup, right, on where the story might go at first within the first hour. That it's like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool, but then there's really no story to it, right? Again, but the gameplay is so much fun. But then the conclusion of the game, you're like, okay, that's it, or It's very, and again, what happened though, from my understanding, is that the whole drama between Hideo Kojima and Konami is where they ended up having to cut the game short a bit, or something to that extent, is my understanding of it. And so, unfortunately, what we got is a game that feels like it's not quite finished, but even then, though, I think that the focus of the game was more gameplay, and I don't hate it for that, right? Again, that we play games for the gameplay, and so because of that, I really loved it. But as far as I would say this, highly recommend you play this game if you want an awesome stealth action game. Highly recommend it. If you're just mainly into Metal Gear Solid games for the story of it, I would almost say you can pretty much skip this game, because it does. I mean, it's interesting what happens, but if you look at the overall timeline of the Metal Gear games, but it's not really needed though, right? For it, at least in my opinion. So you can get by with playing the other more story-intensive games if that's what you're playing these Metal Gear games for, and skip this one. But if you want a cool stealth action game, probably the best one you can play, right? So take that for what it is, right? But yeah, I really enjoyed this game though. I put a lot of hours into this game, and like I said, I wasn't playing as many games at this time as I was before, but this is one that I did put a lot of hours into. This and Batman Arkham Knight, I remember they definitely took up a lot of my time, and I was having a blast playing these games. But then also the other game that I was having a lot of blast to, which was my favorite game of this year, and one of my favorite games of all time, and it's The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. So The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, I got it at the time because it was getting just so much praise, right? They were talking about it as like one of the best games of all time, and this and this, that and that. And I had already played The Witcher 2, which I kind of liked, but I didn't beat that game, but I liked the concept of that game, so I was like, okay, I'll give this Witcher 3 game a shot. People seem to be talking really highly of it. And I got it at the time on the PlayStation 4, as I didn't get the Xbox One until I think next year. The Witcher 4, or I'm sorry, The Witcher 3, got it on the PlayStation 4. And so I remember when I first started playing it, I had a hard time getting into it at first because I hadn't really played too many RPGs like this, where there's a lot of just the setup to it. I just remember being confused by a lot about this game, and so I put it off after a while, and it wasn't until I think maybe the following year where I picked it up again and started playing it, and then eventually, I don't recall what exactly happened, but I just remember there was like some side mission that I did. I was like, oh, that's interesting, and so then I kept playing it. And the Bloody Baron one where I don't want to give too much. Again, I don't try to do spoilers like on my podcast here, but if you know anything about that mission, I think that's what it's called, the Bloody Baron, and that whole mission right there, I was like, oh, that is so cool, right? Just the way it concludes. And so then I just got hooked, and I kept playing it and playing it and playing it. But when I was playing this game, though, I wasn't really playing it to beat it. I was just loving exploring this world in Novigrad and Skelgard or whatever they're called, and I just love getting lost in this world and just finding like random little side quests and all. What makes this game so great is, so it's a dark fantasy. If you don't know anything about The Witcher 3, right? Because I mean, they even had a popular TV show that's still ongoing on Netflix, but basically it's a dark fantasy, and this game is based off of these Polish dark fantasy novels, and you play Geralt, who's a Witcher, and Witchers are basically these super beings where they go through a certain procedure, and if they survive it, they get like these superpowers, but most people die, though, during the procedure, so Geralt is one that he survived it, and not only that, he's one of the more powerful Witchers out there, and basically they just get like super senses, like super sight, or they can sense out monsters easier, or they just have like, they're just skilled fighters, or something like that. But anyways, the overall open world of this game is so amazing, so detailed, and the quests that you can do in this game. So you have your main story, which is pretty cool, but the side content to this game, it is really fleshed out, where previously side content in game was just kind of like that extra little thing you can do to pad out the game. This one, though, I mean, like I said, in that one submission that I did, right, with the Bloody Baron, if I recall, I don't think it's something that you necessarily have to do all the way through. But if you do, you go down this rabbit hole of like this cool story with cool gameplay moments and all. And it is just truly, it makes the world feel very much alive, right? Because there's so much you can do. There is so much history and lore, right? That you really feel like you're living in this, like in a world that's lived in, right? Like it doesn't feel artificial almost, right? It's kind of hard to describe, but there's no like filler in the game, and everything feels like it's there with a purpose, but it's humongous. I mean, there's so much to do in this game, and so ultimately, I got lost in this game. Not like as far as like I didn't know where to do. I just got lost in it and just being absorbed in this world, right? With all the different side content you could do, or just sometimes just exploring the world, because the graphics are pretty excellent on it. And this is before the next generation patches came out. I didn't end up beating this game until like around 2019 or 18 or so, right? Because I remember I was just getting so lost and just doing a bunch of these side content until one day I told myself, I was like, okay, let's. I was already pretty well leveled up and everything, and I understood already at that point the mechanics of the game. I was like, let's just start beating this game, right? So I finally started streamlining the game as far as just doing the main missions until I eventually beat it. And the last stretch of the game is pretty amazing too, and just overall really fell in love with this game, and it's definitely been one of the better gaming experiences I've ever had in video gaming. I think I have this game listed as like my 6th or 7th favorite game of all time or so. But now with this next generation patches that it's come out with and all, I really want to go back into this game. It's just that it's a time commitment that you're gonna, that you have to commit to with this game. It's very long, it's very involving. So this is sort of a game that you play to live in for a while. But I haven't even done the DLC content, which I heard is really great in it too. So I'm kind of, me just talking about it right now, I really want to get into this game again. Like I said, it's kind of like Skyrim, right? If you are okay with just playing like one game and you want something though that is just really meaty, has a lot of content to it, has a lot of lore to it, has so much things you can get absorbed in, I can't really think of a much better game other than The Witcher 3. Well, and probably, Skyrim too also, but I prefer The Witcher 3 for that. Like if you want something like that, you will have an absolutely amazing time with this game. It is a very dark, mature game, so not one for the kids, right? I mean, it's very mature in its content, mature in that it's violent, a lot of adult content stuff in it, right? So it's basically like you're watching a rated R movie, but it's so involving, really well written, so much about this game that I love, just an absolutely one of the. I mean, truly, I feel confident in saying this. Truly. I should say, I feel confident in saying this almost objectively. Obviously, everything is like, as far as what your favorite video game is subjective, but I can almost say this objectively that truly one of the greatest games of all time. It is just that good. It's an amazing time with this game. All right, but let's get now into some console exclusives, or at least they were exclusives at this time. So starting with the Wii U. So the Wii U actually had a pretty decent year. As I was going through the games that came out this year, I was like, the Wii U actually had some stuff on here. I actually downloaded some stuff onto my Wii U recently, and so kind of like really fleshing out what I can play on that system. I'll just say that if you can mod that system, it's pretty cool. But starting off with, we had Fatal Frame, Maiden of Blackwater. And so this is continuing on from the Fatal Frame games, which I don't know if I've even talked about any of these, but they're kind of like these Japanese horror games, and usually it involves, to some extent, using a camera where you're seeking out like paranormal activity. I know the first one was pretty creepy. That's the one that I got into. And so this is continuing on from the series, and I think, I could be wrong, but I think this one only came out in Japan. Not 100% sure on that. And I don't know if it was pretty well received or not, but it did come out this year, though. But a pretty big game, though, that we got for the Wii U, and it was one of the more highly sought after Wii U exclusives, at least for a while, was Xenoblade Chronicles X. And so this is from the Xenoblade Chronicle series, but they were kind of doing something a little bit different with this one. I haven't gone too far into either one of these games, so this is just a little bit that I know. But the first Xenoblade Chronicles game, It was very much story based. You have your main protagonist who talks and all, right, and he's a set character, right, like he's already a pre-established character and all. And this one though seems to be more open ended, more along the lines of like almost like a Japanese Skyrim, and where you create your own character. And it seems like the story on it is pretty cool, but it's not like the main focus. Where the main part of it is just kind of doing its submissions and all that. So kind of like a Skyrim slash Witcher, but in an anime style. And so a little bit that I played of it now on the Switch version, it definitely seems like a very involving game of that, right? Because yes, I was playing it, I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of sort of like a Witcher or a Skyrim anime style. And so it's a pretty cool game, and it was really highly sought after on the Wii U because, like I said, it didn't get a release elsewhere, like on the Switch, until just last year in 2025. So yeah, and I mean at the time it looked really incredible for being on the Wii U, and so it was one of the few exclusives that you can say that was on the system, right? That you couldn't play elsewhere for quite a long time. And for people that played it, they really seem to like it. And a little bit that I've gone into it now, I can see why. It seems like a really involving game, a really fun game, and an incredible looking game as well too, given the system that it was running on. But we had another exclusive though on it called Devil's Third. And this one, I think it was developed by, the dude behind Ninja Gaiden, or was it Shinji Mikami? But it's like some kind of a third-person game. I think it had an online component to it, and honestly, I don't know much about it other than that it's a pretty violent game. But it was exclusive on this system here on the Wii U. And then we also got Yoshi's Woolly World, which is a fun little platformer, from the Yoshi family of games, which after Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, they kind of started going into more of a kid-friendly sort of like platforming games, which is not a bad thing. The games that I played from this series here, they're definitely fun and games that I could see would be good games for like if you have a young one at home where they want to get into platformers. That it would be like I think that this series is good for that there, and I think that that's what Nintendo purposely develops these games for. But it doesn't mean that they're not fun, right? The ones that I played are a lot of fun. I haven't played this one specifically, but from what I understand, it seemed like it got a pretty good reception overall. So I'd be interested in trying it now that I have it on the Wii U. But probably one of the bigger games that came out this year was Super Mario Maker. And so this is an interesting concept. So I've never played it, but basically you create your own Mario levels. So it's almost like Little Big Planet in a way, only now you're using assets from Mario games. And so from what I understand, you can create like 2D levels with the graphical styles of like the Nintendo one, the Super Nintendo one, or like the new Super Mario Brothers games, with a more 3D look to them. Well, 2.5D look, and you can create these levels as crazy as you want them to be, right? And so, there's people that have created just these really torturous levels where the platforming on it is just absolutely insane. But I've seen some YouTube videos of some people beating some of these levels, and that's like, damn, you got to be crazy skilled to get through these. My understanding is that they shut the servers down fairly recently, but for the time, because there's a sequel that came out, which I think is still ongoing on the Switch. But this first one, though, was definitely a unique concept. So again, kind of like Little Big Planet, but with Mario characters. And so from what I understand, it was received pretty well overall because of that. Because it's like, hey, cool, you get to create Mario levels, right? That's a lot of fun. But the flip side of that is that there's not a whole lot of people out there that can create really good levels, right? Which are challenging but fun and all, and that are really polished and all the way Nintendo can. And so what it meant was that while there were probably some fun levels to play that you can play from what the community was putting up on their servers to play, a lot of them were just kind of like not that great, right? So if you're looking for like a fun sort of like a do-it-yourself Mario game, right? And if you like that user-generated content, then it seems like it was a good experience. But if you're looking for like a good 2D Mario game, it's maybe not the experience you'd be going for, right? But definitely a unique concept, and it seemed like it did pretty good for Nintendo overall, though. But getting now into the Xbox One, so it had a few exclusives, at least at this time. So we had another Forza game, so Forza Motorsport 6. So continuing on with the Motorsport or Forza game. So this one is so again, now they were split up into two, right? There's the Forza Horizon games, which is a more open-ended a little bit, not quite arcade racing, but a little bit more, not quite as realistic. And then we have the Forza Motorsport games, which are the more realistic racing simulators that were sort of like the Gran Turismo games. And so we had the sixth one in the Motorsport series, right? The more realistic ones that came out this year. So I don't know much more about it other than kind of more of the same. But we had a temporary exclusive on the Xbox One that came out this year, and that was for Rise of the Tomb Raider. And this one also came out on the 360 as well, too. And from my understanding, it looked pretty decent on the 360, but it was exclusive to the Xbox One at this time. And so in 2013, we talked about the Tomb Raider, the reboot of it, right? And so this is a sequel to that one there. So continuing on from Lara Croft's story from that version. And yeah, this is a really excellent game. I didn't play it until much later, but it's when I did get to play it, I was like, oh wow, yeah, this is a excellent Tomb Raider game, following up on the one that came out in 2013. Kind of more of the same, but just expands more on the overall areas you can go to and all. Pretty incredible graphics, and just overall, just a great Tomb Raider game. In some ways, because I know these games get compared a lot to the Uncharted games, and in some ways, I kind of prefer these Tomb Raider games over that one there. Some things I like, because again, this one is a little bit more. It's an action adventure game, just the same way I guess I would categorize the Uncharted games. But I feel like the Uncharted games lean more towards action, less towards adventure, as far as like exploration and all. Where the Tomb Raider games are like, it has action, but more emphasis on like exploration, give or take, right? But either way, great overall series though, and yeah, this one definitely. If you like the 2013 Tomb Raider one, I think you would highly like this one too. Eventually, this game came out on the other systems, but at least for a brief moment, right, it was an Xbox One exclusive, which is kind of an odd exclusive to get for the Xbox One. I guess I don't know the full story on that there, but that whatever reason, Crystal Dynamics decided just to put it on the Xbox One. Maybe Microsoft was just kind of desperate for having any kind of exclusivity on their system, even if it was just temporary. But one game, though, that was exclusive on the Xbox, at least for a stretch, and again, when I say exclusive, I'm meaning like console, because I think some of these games also came out on PC, but was the 2.5D Metroidvania, Ori and the Blind Forest. I've played this game to some extent. I haven't beaten it, but what I have played, it is an absolutely beautiful game. It's you control like this, I don't know, like this little animal creature, and the overall environments are just truly gorgeous to look at. The Metroidvania aspects of it, like as far as the exploration, the reward for finding items and all, is pretty well done, and just truly one of the most gorgeous games you'll ever play, even if it's just in 2D. It's the intro of this game is truly beautiful, kind of heartbreaking also, but very charming, and very just the story to it, the music, everything about it, right? It definitely, kind of hits you in the feels, right? And all, but it's just very beautiful, though, the way it's set up and everything. And then when you actually get into the game, it's a lot of fun to play. Ori controls pretty well, and again, it's a series that I really need to go back and beat this game, because then we have a sequel that I'm sure we'll talk about later, that seems to be maybe did a little bit better than this one. But for what it is, this one here, Ori and the Blind Forest, an excellent 2.5D Metroidvania game. So if you, for some reason, don't know anything about it, but like Metroidvania games, this is one that I would definitely recommend for you. Truly, like I said, the graphics on it are just absolutely outstanding, and I really enjoy this game for that, along with the gameplay and all. But let's go over to the PlayStation 4 now. So this system here started giving some of the exclusives that the system would eventually be well known for. But before we get into some original stuff, though, we did get a cool compilation, though, from Blue Point, who we've talked about fairly recently on the modern gaming stuff, that they are now a defunct company thanks to Sony. But they were really good at doing like remasters, and there's already been several remasters and all that I just haven't really touched too much on, just because it's like, I try to talk more about like the games when they originally came out, and not so much like the remasters of them, because we started getting a lot of them. But I thought that this collection was pretty cool, though, where you get the Nathan Drake games, those Uncharted 1, 2, and 3, which were really good games on the PlayStation 3, but now running at 60 frames per second, slightly bumped up resolution, look incredible, and I just wanted to give it a bit of a homage, just to sort of like highlight how good Blue Point was at remastering some of these games, because it truly made like this the definitive way for me personally personally to play these games, because you get the same great game, but because it is an action-based game, they just play so much better in 60 frames per second, and that's what this collection brought. And so when because it really showed just how great the graphics were on these games on the PlayStation 3 versions, but when you bump it up to 60 frames per second, it truly transforms the game almost, and made it look on par with a lot of like the PlayStation 4 games that were coming out at the time. And so just wanted to talk a little bit about that, right? Because I think that this is one of the more incredible ports remasters that Bluepoint did. So hopefully that these talented developers end up finding somewhere work, right? Because they knew how to do these kind of games here, right? And so hopefully they can land on their feet somewhere. But actually, before I continue on that, though, I did kind of forget here. I kind of skipped over on some pretty big games that came out on the Wii U and the Xbox. So one game that came out on the Wii U also, which was pretty popular, was for Splatoon. So Splatoon, you play like these kind of like, I don't know, they're like cute little characters and all that kind of, I don't know, they look like almost like the little Brats or the Funko Pops, kind of a combination between those two. But it's like, I think this is Nintendo's attempt of doing like some kind of an online shooter that were starting to become popular, but in a friendly Nintendo way. So in this game, it's called Platoon. It's where you're shooting like paint at each other, and you can roll paint on the ground and all, and seems to be like a lot of fun for that kind of game there. But I think, it had like, the game, to my understanding, has like a single player component to it, but also online, and that seems to be where the game got a lot of players on it, right? At least, for as far as the Wii U goes, because it just seemed like to be a really fun game to play online for that. Where again, it was like an online shooter, but you're not like shooting everyone with bullets; you're just shooting paint at them, right? It's almost kind of think of it like a paint gun kind of game, but with some pretty interesting characters. And so, yeah, just wanted to touch base on that game there a bit. And then on the Xbox, well, we got, I forgot to mention this game, but we got Halo 5 Guardians. And so Halo 5, it's an interesting one where this is the first, oh no, wait, not the first, but it was from 343 Studios. So again, Bungie wasn't doing Halo games anymore. So the previous year we talked about the Halo collection, but now this year we got the actual original, or a new original Halo game. And so I haven't beaten this one yet, but this one was a bit controversial because the setup of the game is that you're going to be going back and forth between Master Chief and this other character, and it was all being hyped up like they were going to have like some kind of an epic clash, or showdown. And ultimately, like I said, because I haven't beaten the game, so I don't know to what extent that all played out, but it seemed like it was a bit of a letdown. I played like about 3 levels into it, and it seems cool. I mean, the graphics are pretty amazing on it, if anything. But something about it, though, that it just doesn't have that Bungie feel to it. I mean, it feels like Halo. It looks like Halo. But it just doesn't feel like Halo in some ways. And so Halo 4 was pretty good, right? I'll give 343 Studios credit to Halo 4. Something about this one, though, and maybe that's why I just haven't beaten it, because I play it and I'm like, it's not bad. It's not a bad game, but I don't know. Something about it just doesn't hook me. But anyways, it came out this year, and this is, for me, where I feel like Halo really started kind of going downhill a bit. As, again, Halo 4 was a pretty good game, but not quite on the level of like the Bungie ones. The Halo Master Chief Collection is great and eventually became a really great compilation overall, but I think because the online component of that was botched at first, I think that started losing faith in this company. And then we get Halo 5 Guardians, which, again, not a bad game. It lacked that Bungie magic. And so I think people were starting to realize that maybe Halo 5 or the Halo series as a whole was, not quite what it was going to, that it wasn't going to continue to be this amazing series that we had known it to be, which we kind of assumed, because we assumed that it was like Microsoft's baby, right? I mean, it was sort of, it's their mascot, Halo, right? But yeah, it's not a bad game, but I would say amongst one of the weaker Halo games. All right, but sorry, yeah, I forgot to mention those earlier. But continuing on with the PlayStation 4, so we got Helldivers, which was like this online game. I don't know much about this game, other than that it's sort of like a online shooter. Kind of seems like in the vein. When I look at it, I could be wrong. When I look at it, it seems like a combination between Killzone and Super Troopers, but or Super Troopers. What am I talking about? Enhance. 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 No, not fucking Super Troopers. Starship Troopers. It'd be pretty funny though. Fucking Killzone and Super Troopers. You boys like Mexico? Snosberries taste like snosberry. It's funny if my wife were listening to this, she'd probably be like, "Oh my god, husband!" I've been trying to get her to watch that movie, but a little bit that she's seen it or no, for some reason the movie and that's because she loves like raunchy comedies and all, but for some reason that movie just annoys her. So she's talking like, "Oh my god, my idiot husband is talking here about Super Troopers." One day though, I'm gonna get her to watch it all the way through. I've got her to watch The Room. Actually, when we were first getting together, I had told her, I was like, "Yeah, I'm a bit of a movie buff, so I like to watch a lot of movies." And so I had heard about The Room movie, right? That really cheesy movie with that one Tommy Wiseau or whatever that actor's name is. And so I got her to watch it with me one time, and I hadn't seen it before, right? And the movie's just horrible. It's a horrible movie, but it's so bad it's good movie. And the whole time she watched that damn movie all the way through with me, I'm like, all right, you are a keeper. You watched this whole damn movie with me. That says something. So if you're listening to this, babe, I appreciate that. But you still got to watch Super Troopers with me. Come on. But fucking Killzone and Starship Troopers. And again, that's what I know about this Helldivers game as much as I can know about it. The sequel ended up being big, right? They came out a few years ago, but this is where the first one started out. So if you saw that it was Helldivers 2 and you got into that one and you're like, well, what about Helldivers 1, right? Well, this is where it started. But we got another game here, Until Dawn, and that is a... who developed this? I forgot, but it's kind of like kind of in the line of like the games from like Quantic Dream, so like Heavy Rain and all, where it's very story based. You have some gameplay to it, where you do move your character around and interact with some things, and then but it has a lot of like QTE moments in it, so quick time events. We're just pushing like a button prompt, and then it has also certain moments in it and all where you you have to make like a split second decision. And so what it is, it Until Dawn is basically like, it really pays homage to like a lot of the 80s slasher flicks, teen flicks, right? Like Jason or Friday the 13th or Halloween and all, right? And what I've played of it, you're like out in this log cabin and some messed up shit happens, right? I really want to play this game more. I've only played like the opening segment of it, and it looks pretty cool. So definitely a game that I think I could get into. Maybe I'll try to play it this Halloween. And they even made a movie of it recently, which is supposedly pretty bad, but it's... it's meant to be a bit cheesy, a bit kind of campy, but that's sort of the fun of it, right? But it has a lot of like popular actors in it. Like it has Hayden Panettiere, I think is her name, who also did the voice for Kairi in Kingdom Hearts. But it has Rami Malek in it, I believe that's his name. And it also has one other actor that I used to see him in a lot of Michael Bay movies, I think. I think he's like a Russian actor. I forgot his name, but anyway, when you're playing the game, I'm sure you'll notice like a lot of celebrity talent in the game. Like they use like their voice actors and also their likeness as well too. So, but yeah, if you like a slasher flicks and story based games, I would say that this is the one that would definitely be up your alley if you've never played it or heard about it before. But another ambitious game that came out this year that unfortunately didn't quite live up to the hype, but it was The Order 1886. And so this game is basically like it's a third-person shooter set in this sort of like steampunk world where you take out like this authoritarian regime, I guess. I don't know, something like that. But it also has werewolves mixed into it as well. So kind of think of like steampunk meets those movies Underworld. Have you ever seen those Underworld movies where it's got Kate Beckinsale and they're like vampires fighting like lichens in it? Doesn't have vampires as far as I know, but the lichens in that movie are similar to the ones in this movie or in this game here. And so the concept is really cool. It seemed like Sony was really trying to do something with this game because it was made by Ready at Dawn, or Ben Studios, I think. I think they're the developers behind it, but they're really talented developers because the game itself looks absolutely amazing. It is still, like, when you first look at it, this is still one of the best looking games of all time. It looks truly stunning. It only runs at 30 frames per second though, right? And it's also letterbox too. But that also gives it a bit of a cinematic feel to it as well, right? Because I mean, the detail in the backgrounds and the characters and the animation and everything looks absolutely outstanding. And I remember when I first saw this game, I was like, holy fuck. I mean, like I said earlier, right? Graphics started to peak around this time. Again, you can get better frame rates, you can get better resolution, but the textures, the character models, and all that, they didn't really improve that much more from what we were seeing here already. And so, if you want like a showpiece for, or like, I mean, well, yeah, I guess even to this day, but if at the time, if you wanted like a showpiece for what these new systems could do, or like your PlayStation 4 specifically, this was one be the one to get. I mean, it looks absolutely amazing. It's very creative, very unique, and the game plays pretty good as well too. I haven't beaten this game yet. I've only messed around with it a little bit, but it's not that long, so I should really go back and just beat it, right? Just to get it out of the way. But but it did get a lot of criticism, mainly because it was a bit short and the gameplay is a bit monotonous, right? Whereas I mean, it kind of plays like Uncharted or Gears of War, where it has like the duck and cover shooting mechanics and all. And for the most part, that plays fine in it. It's just that the level layouts and everything aren't quite as inspired as far as like the versatility of them, like those games are. But everything that I played about, I was like, this is a fine game. I mean, it plays pretty good. It looks amazing, and also, and it's not that long, so I definitely want to go back and beat this game at some point. And usually you can find it pretty cheap to buy on the PlayStation Store. So I would say that if you want like a cool cinematic experience, that's not too long and all, and if you can find it for like, because I think I bought it for like $3 one time. It was really cheap on there, and so I would definitely recommend this game for that there. But probably Bloodborne came out this year on the PlayStation 4, and for so many people, this game is just an absolute amazing game. There's such a request for this game to have a remaster of some sort, and we've already talked about that some in, when I've been doing my modern gaming news. Ultimately, it seems like From Software, who is the developers of these, and who's also done like the Dark Souls games, they're probably not wanting to do a remaster of this unless it's them specifically doing it. And because this game is very well beloved, that it has a certain fan base, that if it's not done correctly, I think that there'll be so much backlash for it, because like the Demon Souls remake that they did, which we'll talk about in later years, it's not bad, but it's not quite like to the standards of like what From Software does. And so I don't think that Bloodborne, they want to touch that. So it's almost been like kind of like Chrono Trigger or Super Metroid, right? Where those games have been such fan favorites and they're almost perfect as it is, that, they probably think of that about Bloodborne, but it definitely seems like it could use a 60 frame per second bump, right? Because again, any action game where, reaction time and all that is a big factor in it, like, these Souls-like games, 60 frames per second is very much appreciated. But with 60 frames per second, because it can kind of mess with the timing and everything of like your dodges and attacks and all, maybe they have to really get it right, is my understanding. I don't know, I could be wrong on that, but basically Bloodborne, it's a Souls game, right? Or what? I don't know if it's right calling it a Souls-like, since they were the original creators of it, but it's like a Souls-like, like Demon Souls and all, right? Only this time it's more offensive based, where as far as I know, you don't have a block button, but it gives you some cool offensive attacks though, right? To attack your enemy or counter them or get away from them. And the setting is kind of like in this Gothic Victorian style, and I love the setting to it. I think it looks absolutely amazing, and it's very difficult though, and out of like all the Souls-like games, this one and another one that we'll talk about later, Elden Ring, those are like the two ones that I really want to get into, because even though they're hard and I have a hard time getting into them, I just absolutely love the settings to them though and all, right? That I'm like, I gotta try to get good, as they say, to get immersed in these games more, because I feel like if I can be good at them, then I'll really enjoy them, because I already enjoy them as it is. It's just that, fuck, man, they're tough though, and I have a hard time. I don't know, it's just something about these games that my brain can't figure out how to get better at them for some reason. But I haven't put them out yet, not because I really like the aesthetics to the game and the look of the game and all. And so Bloodborne, I mean, for a lot of people, I think that this is one of their more favorite games that came out this year. Truly beloved by a lot, and hopefully, for the fans, right, they, eventually there is a remaster that comes out of this of some sort. Although I have heard that there's already PlayStation 4 emulation that's coming along. It's still not perfect or anything, but it's it's in the works. And but from what I've read, it seems like they've been almost able to get Bloodborne running at 60 frames per second on this emulator. I think I read that somewhere. So it's like, well, damn it, if the company's not going to do it, then the fans will do it. But yeah, Bloodborne, it's a very beloved game, and I can see why. It's, for people that are fans of that genre, I can definitely see the appeal to it, as I'm interested in it, even though I'm not, too good at these games. But yeah, one of these days I'll try to keep getting into it, just because I just love the look to it. It kind of reminds me of like going way back to the PlayStation days, this game that was called Nightmare Creatures. That game was, I don't know if I talked about it back then, but like it would have been like, I think the game came out in 1999 or so. I don't know if I talked about it in that episode there, but it's sort of like this hack and slash 3D game. It's a bit clunky, a lot of 3D games were in that time, but it was kind of like this very gothic, sort of Victorian inspired game too. And so for some reason, Bloodborne reminds me like of a much updated version of what that game was. But yeah, Bloodborne though. Maybe at some point I'll try to get into it more. But that's what I got for 2015, and so definitely, I mean, with some of these games that I talked about, right, like I could say for like Arkham Knight, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Witcher 3, Bloodborne, for a lot of people, Undertale, and the Wii U actually has some pretty decent stuff there as well, along with a lot of the other multi-platform games, right, that I talked about that I personally didn't play. Definitely a great year. Like I said before, right, just between those games right there, I think that this was the first truly great year for the 8th generation, and definitely stands out as one of the better years still, right, of this generation here, as I just felt there was a lot of great games that came out this year that are still talked about to this day. I mean, like, for example, The Witcher 3 and Bloodborne, those two alone right there are still highly sought after nowadays, and among some of the more popular games out there, and yeah, so definitely made for a cool experience this year. But next episode, we will talk about the year 2016 and what that brought to video games. And so giving you a little bit of a preview there. So we had a certain Dude Raider that comes back in a new game, only now with, upgraded to the PlayStation 4. We also had another Doom Slayer taking on the Hordes of Hell also. And a certain Final Fantasy game came out as well too. So we will touch base on all that in next episode. Hopefully I should have that up by next Sunday. Usually I try to get these up around, sometime in the morning, right, on a Sunday. And so hope you all have an excellent week. Take care of yourselves, and we will see you in the next one. Have a good one.